Chapter 1879. The Shadow Priest could not agree on Shi Shang's behalf, so he looked at Shi Shang instead. Shi Shang said the same thing again. Grandpa Yu was so angry that he wanted to jump up and hit her. His Yu family only had this one child. If something were to happen to this only child because of what he had done in the past, how could he face his ancestors? Why do I have such a disobedient granddaughter like you? Grandpa Yu slapped his thigh and gritted his teeth as if he wanted to strangle Shi Shang to death, but in the end, he could not bear to do so. Shi Shang shrugged. What else can I do? Shove me back in? Grandpa Yu was speechless. This unfilial granddaughter was really infuriating. Shi Shang smiled innocently. Grandpa Yu scoffed and said, "We'll go to the nearest base tomorrow." Rongguang base was gone overnight. He really did not know if the other bases could withstand Shia's attack. Grandpa Yu took a deep breath. If it really came to the last step, he had to find a way to protect this unfilial granddaughter. After a quiet night, they set off on the Iron Sword the next day. Only then did Grandpa Yu react and ask Shi Shang what the hell was this flying thing. Shi Shang vaguely made up a few sentences, unwilling to explain too much. For this kind of old man, the more you explained, the more he liked to get to the bottom of it. Grandpa Yu was furious, but he could not do anything to Shi Shang, so he could only sulk alone. They arrived at the nearest base very quickly, but it was already abandoned. There was no one inside, and only dried bloodstains could be seen on the ground. This place had long been destroyed. Xia. Grandpa Yu stood outside the base with a sorrowful expression as he muttered Xia's name. This base had obviously been attacked earlier than Rongguang base, but they did not receive any news at all. Instead, they would receive signals from the base every day, proving that they were operating normally here. But in reality, the base had long ceased to exist. Grandpa Yu did not know how many bases had been attacked. If Xia could make one base look intact, she could naturally make the other bases look like they had not been attacked. Shadow Priest, look at this. Shadow Priest came out of the base and held a strange picture. Shadow Priest glanced at the piece of paper and his expression suddenly changed. Where did you find it? Ying Shang pointed inside and answered obediently, "There's a laboratory on the second floor. I saw it in your room before, so I took it out." What's this? Shi Shang leaned over to take a look at the paper. Shadow Sacrifice kept the paper and led Shi Shang into the base. "Stay here and accompany Grandpa Yu, I'll be back soon," Ying Ji said to Ying Shang. Oh. Ying Shang was a little disappointed. There was no light in the base, and his feet were sticky. He didn't know what he had stepped on, but after walking for a while, the road ahead leveled out. The Shadow Sacrifice continued forward and finally stopped in front of a door. The door was open, and there was a weak emergency light inside. They could barely see the situation inside. This was a laboratory. There was an ice-cold operating table and some strange transparent jars. In the corner of the room, there were many corpses. Some had already dried up, and some had just started to rot, emitting a rotten stench. Shadow Sacrifice let go of the Shi Shang and went inside, rummaging through the test bench. What happened? Ying Ji spread out the papers. Didn't you ask me what I gave Ying Shang? Huh? What did that have to do with this? Shadow Sacrifice tilted his head and looked into the depths of Shi Shang's eyes. Mental strength. I gave him mental strength. He pointed at the papers on the table. At that time, I thought I didn't succeed. These are the theories I wrote down. Mental strength. This thing was equivalent to a soul. Shi Shang looked at the papers. Then why are they here? I don't know. Shadow Sacrifice supported himself on the table. At that time, I thought I failed, so I kept these things and haven't touched them since. Shi Shang flipped through the papers and looked at the rotting corpses in the corner. He had a bold idea. Shi Shang arranged the papers on the table and picked out the useful information. Are there other metahumans in this world? Shia's ability was equivalent to a special ability. Since Xia had it, other people might have it too. If only the main character had it, then the main character would be invincible. In order to balance and make things more difficult for the main character, there would definitely be other metahumans. Yes. Shadow Sacrifice nodded. But it's very rare. Those with the ability wouldn't appear rashly because it would cost them their lives. This was normal. No matter what kind of world it was, if someone with the ability didn't have the ability to protect themselves, they would usually end up in a miserable state. Therefore, the most important thing wasn't to have the ability, but to have the strength and brains to control the ability. Even if you were weak, as long as you were smart enough, you could still stand at the top and look down on the world. If this was done by Xia, then Xia has at least 2 metahumans helping him, Shishang concluded. He's using this to rob some people of their mental strength for his own use. But Face, are you sure this is the main character? Why do I feel like he's a villain? Can't the evil main character be the main character? Only you can be evil, but the main character can't be evil? Why are you so agitated? I didn't say he couldn't be evil. I'm just a little agitated to meet such a main character. Agitated? What's there to be agitated about? Shishang's smile was a little eerie. He could now confirm that Xia was the mastermind behind all this. I don't know if I should curse. The host is trying to trick the system again. Hashtag the host's brain is always wired differently from us mortals. Hashtag, I thought this theory wouldn't work, but who would have thought? The Shadow Priest scoffed coldly. The results of his research had been used by someone else. No matter how he thought about it, he felt unhappy. Shishang waved a piece of paper, and the whole room was filled with the sound of rustling. You really don't remember how these things ended up in Xia's hands? The Shadow Priest tried his best to recall, but he couldn't remember. The place he lived in had been invaded by the desert creatures, so it was impossible for him to go back and check where he had placed the things. He wasn't even sure if those things were still there. Forget it. We'll deal with it when the time comes. Shishang threw the paper aside. The most important thing now is how to get the mental strength back from Ying Shang's body. If it had been a different setting, like a fantasy immortal cultivation, it would have been easy to get it back. However, in this setting, the words mental strength were new. It was easier said than done to get it back. Ying Shang's situation was different from the others. He was clearly the weaker party, but now he could affect the Shadow Priest. There was no guarantee that he would really replace the Shadow Priest later on. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little Fairy. In the end, we're leaving behind the old days and ushering in a new life. Cherub. Speak like a human. Little Fairy. A new month has begun. Let's vote. System. You might as well not speak like a human. Little Fairy. Deduct my scenes. System. I don't have many scenes anyway. Deduct them if you want. Little Fairy. Heh, even you, but Face, dare to oppose me. System. Smile. Bite me. Little Fairy. Chapter 1880. Shishang and Shadow Sacrifice didn't tell Grandpa Yu about what happened below the base. They continued to walk forward. However, some of the following bases had been abandoned long ago, and some had just been attacked. In short, none of them were intact. Xia Yi seemed to know the distribution of all the bases, even a contact station. Grandpa Yu's expression grew worse and worse. He couldn't contact anyone for a long time, and he kept seeing the bases being attacked. How could he be in a good mood? Go down. Grandpa Yu, who had been in low spirits, suddenly said. Shishang looked down. There were some buildings below, scattered in picturesque disorder. There was no movement on the ground, and it looked like an abandoned city. The desert buried most of the buildings, but some outlines of some big cities from 300 years ago could still be seen. However, they were all wrapped in a thick layer of sand, as if they were sealed. Shishang controlled the iron sword to fall into the open space below. His whole foot sank into the soft sand, and he didn't step on the ground until his calf was above the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Go and see if there's an entrance nearby. Cough, cough. Grandpa Yu covered his mouth and coughed. Grandpa, are you okay? He was fine just now. Why did he suddenly cough? I'm fine. Go and find it. Grandpa Yu waved his hand. Sher Shang looked at Grandpa Yu, took out 2 talismans from his space, and stuffed them into Grandpa Yu's clothes. Then he went to find an entrance with shadow sacrifice. This city was very big, and the ground was covered in sand. It was very difficult to find an entrance to the underground. Sher Shang searched for a long time before he found a sewer. However, as soon as he opened it, the sand poured in. There was no way to go down. He could only clear an empty space and then open the sewer. Sher Shang went back to find Grandpa Yu, but only shadow sacrifice was left. Grandpa Yu was nowhere to be found. Where is he? Sher Shang asked Shadow Sacrifice. Shadow Sacrifice's lips moved, and he silently handed a note to Sher Shang. Sher Shang unfolded the note. What happened back then must be resolved. Go to the north and find your parents. Live well. Sher Shang looked at Shadow Sacrifice calmly. Shadow Sacrifice waved his hand helplessly. I stopped him. Sher Shang looked around. There were many buildings here, and Grandpa Yu could hide in any direction. Sher Shang put the note away. If Grandpa Yu stayed, she could keep him safe. But if he chose to leave, Sher Shang would not chase after him. After Grandpa Yu left, Sher Shang stopped looking for a base and walked around in the desert. Anyway, it looked the same in all directions, so he could go anywhere. Shadow Sacrifice, I think I'm almost out of battery. Ying Shang looked pitifully at Shadow Sacrifice. He hadn't recharged his battery since he left the base. Without electricity, he couldn't even move. Thinking of this, Ying Shang felt even sadder. How much is left? 10%, Ying Shang answered dejectedly. This amount of power could only last for a day at most. If it couldn't be recharged, then he would fall into hibernation. Shadow Sacrifice frowned. Shadow Sacrifice needed a special charging base, and he definitely didn't bring it with him. Shadow Sacrifice looked at the map. That's the base from last time. The stuff should still be there. Let's go there and take a look. Every time he wanted to be ruthless to Ying Shang, he would have a strange feeling. It was as if he was cutting his own flesh. Okay. Ying Shang's eyes sparkled as he nodded. Sher Shang. He didn't really want to fight with his wife for favor. That base was the one where Sher Shang had woken up. At this time, the entire base was sealed. Sher Shang forced his way in. The passageway was completely destroyed. Along the way, there were only bloodstains, but no bones. It was exactly the same as the other bases. Shadow Sacrifice walked to his room and found the charger in the corner. He lifted the clothes around Ying Shang's waist and connected it to the charger, but the light didn't turn on. The power in the base is cut off. Shadow Sacrifice frowned. I'll go take a look. You guys wait here. I'll go. Sher Shang stopped Shadow Sacrifice and waved the iron sword in his hand. I'm afraid I'll have to save you later. Shadow Sacrifice. Sher Shang followed Shadow Sacrifice's directions and found the power distribution room. However, the room was a mess. Sher Shang spent a long time fixing it. When he came out, he felt like he had gone to a refugee camp for a day. She shook off the sticky liquid on her hand and frowned in disgust. Whoosh! Sher Shang grabbed the iron sword tightly. Bang! The door of the power distribution room closed automatically. At the same time, a few desert lizards came out from the dark. They waved their fat tails at Sher Shang. They attacked from the front, back, left, and right. Their coordination was perfect. Sher Shang. Desert lizards. Do you think I'm retarded if I don't show my power? Sher Shang first cut off the tail of a desert lizard. While it was moaning in pain, he jumped on its back and flipped behind it to cut off the tail of the lizard behind it. His movements were extremely fast. The desert lizard was in pain from having its tail cut off. It didn't have the energy to catch Sher Shang's figure. The desert lizards fell one by one. Sher Shang waved his sword elegantly, like a general on the battlefield, valiant and formidable. However, when he heard what she was saying, the image disappeared. F***ck your grandfather. You think you're the only one with a tail. You're awesome. Keep being awesome. It was as if he had gone from a battlefield to a slaughterhouse image. Don't think that you can let yourself go just because there's no one here. An expert has to maintain their cool at all times. What's the point of competing with a few animals? Speaking of which, the host seems to like to bully animals. Is it the system's imagination? It's definitely not the system's imagination. Shi Shang does like to bully animals, especially those cute animals. However, she doesn't have much malice towards animals. She just wants to bully them. It's commonly known as sick. The system shuddered. Never know how many diseases my host has after coming out of the slaughterhouse. Shi Shang pulled at her dirty clothes and hurriedly found a place to change. She wanted to save her image that was on the verge of collapse. She dragged the iron sword back. The lights in the corridor were already on. The sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor and traveled deep into the room. She pushed open the door and entered. She immediately saw Ying Shang lying on the ground. The shadow ritual was nowhere to be seen. Shi Shang frowned and went forward to wake Ying Shang up. Ying Shang. Ying Shang. Ying Shang woke up after a while. He touched his head and looked at Shi Shang in confusion. What's the matter? Where's the shadow ritual? Shadow ritual? Ying Shang shook his head and got up from the ground. I don't remember. After you left, someone came in and I fainted. Swish, the iron sword suddenly pointed at Ying Shang. The girl holding the sword looked at him coldly. Last chance. Where is the shadow ritual? Ying Shang seemed to be frightened. His face was pale. I don't know. Xiao Huan, are you suspecting me? Chapter 1881. She wasn't suspicious. She was sure that Ying Shang had done it. She had pasted a talisman outside the room and the talisman was intact. No one had entered the room. Ying Shang tried to explain, Xiao Huan, it wasn't me. I don't know where Ying Shang went. I don't know what happened just now. It's really Xiao Huan, believe me. Shi Shang tightened his grip on the iron sword and placed it on Ying Shang's neck. His voice was cold and monotonous. You don't have to say it, but you might be crippled. Don't test my patience. Ying Shang couldn't feel the warmth, but he felt the coldness and a sense of danger. It crept up his spine and rushed to his head. Ying Shang's expression changed and he snorted. So what if you know? You can't find him. Shi Shang narrowed his eyes. Is that so? Ying Shang raised his chin, his eyes filled with stubbornness. Ying Shang is right. I don't like you. It's because he likes you that I feel that I like you. I didn't like you from the start. If you hadn't appeared, Ying Shang wouldn't have done this to me. It's all because of you that Ying Shang became like this. Only when you disappear will Ying Shang return to normal. Shi Shang's lips twitched. That's impossible. I've been looking for him for so long. How can I give up just because you want me to? Do you think I'm a beggar who can be dismissed so easily? Ying Shang pursed his lips. Then what do you want? What will it take for you to let Ying Shang off? I won't let him off no matter what. Shi Shang smiled. Where is Ying Shang? Ying Shang snorted and turned his head away. I don't know. Just kill me. Since Ying Shang didn't want him anymore, he didn't want Ying Shang to be with her either. Why, they had many choices, but he didn't have a choice. His life was given by Ying Shang. He only had Ying Shang. Why did she have to snatch Ying Shang from him? The more Ying Shang thought about it, the sadder he felt. He started to sob. Shi Shang, I haven't even done anything and you're already crying? Were all scammers so sick these days? Shi Shang had no idea what was going on in Ying Shang's head. All she wanted to do now was to find Ying Shang and get rid of her love rival. If this went on, she would go on a killing spree. Shi Shang took out a talisman and threw it into the air. The talisman burned and turned into a wisp of golden light. Ying Shang stared at the golden light in astonishment. He even forgot to sob. The golden light circled a few times in the air and drilled into the ground. Shi Shang took a hemp rope and tied Ying Shang up. He opened the trap that she had fallen into and dragged Ying Shang inside. "What are you doing? Let go of me, let go of me." Ying Shang began to struggle. "Shut up." Shi Shang glared at him. Ying Shang choked at the roar. She wasn't afraid of shadow sacrifice, this idiot, hiding. She was afraid that this idiot would collude with others and give shadow sacrifice away. "You're the one crying without tears." Fortunately, Ying Shang's IQ hadn't completely gone offline. He only hid the shadow sacrifice and didn't give it to anyone else. Shi Shang took shadow sacrifice out. Shadow sacrifice was in a coma. Shi Shang tried to wake him up, but no matter how much she called, shadow sacrifice didn't respond. "Stop calling. He won't wake up without 6 hours," Ying Shang said angrily. "Shi Shang. This idiot. Where's I's sword?" "Xiao Huan." Ying Shang went to Shi Shang and called him the same as before, as if nothing had happened between them. "Untie me first. I feel terrible. Hold it in. I want to go to the toilet." "Why would a robot go to the toilet? Have you become a spirit?" Ying Shang. He leaned against the wall and sat down. "Xiao Huan, I can't leave shadow sacrifice. I don't want to die either. The first person I saw when I was conscious was him. He's the one who gave me life." "So what?" Shi Shang's eyes were cold. "You're where you are today because of him. Now he wants to take back what belongs to him. What's wrong with that?" Ying Shang's eyelashes fluttered. But he had been with him for so long. How could he destroy him just like that? Ying Shang held his head and ran his fingers through his hair. "That's why you chose shadow sacrifice in the beginning, right?" He and shadow sacrifice clearly looked the same. Shadow sacrifice was so cold to her, but she still chose shadow sacrifice. Shi Shang remained silent. A bitter smile appeared on Ying Shang's face. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm shadow sacrifice, but I'm not as smart as him. I can't live openly like him. Although he never forbade me from going out, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that people will look at me strangely. I'm just an AI robot." Ying Shang rambled on for a long time. He looked happy on the surface, but deep down, he was very afraid. He tried his best to prove that he had value by shadow sacrifice's side. Ying Shang had a pure heart. Now that he had come this far, all he wanted was to hide shadow sacrifice. Shi Shang didn't reply. Ying Shang also stopped talking. He squatted in a corner, the darkness taking over half of his body. His back view was lonely and helpless. Shi Shang propped his chin up, his fingertips gently tapping his cheeks. Shadow sacrifice rested his head on his legs, his breathing steady. Time passed silently, and there seemed to be the sound of ticking in the air. What seemed to be F***CK. Shi Shang stood up with shadow sacrifice in his arms. He looked in the direction of the sound. That was the direction they went out. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. The sound became more and more urgent. It came from afar and neared them. It sounded like countless ticking sounds were coming towards them. Shi Shang's heart sank. He carried shadow sacrifice horizontally. "Ying Shang, let's go." Ying Shang also felt that something was wrong. He quickly ran back to Shi Shang's side. "What's that?" "Who knows? Let's run first." In any case, it wasn't anything good. The passageway was narrow, and the ticking sounds became more and more frequent. In the end, Shi Shang could only hear the sound of the ticking noises. His eardrums were about to shatter. Very quickly, Shi Shang knew where the sound was coming from. It was carried by the desert creatures. By the time she knew this, the entire passageway had already exploded and was engulfed in flames. She was forced to retreat, using the desert creatures to carry explosives. She didn't need to guess who it was. Other than the male lead, who else would have such great capabilities? Shi Shye wanted to kill them. Explosions sounded continuously from all directions. Flames swept in from all directions, swallowing the people in the center. Ing Shang's gaze landed on Shadow Sacrifice. He instinctively pushed Shi Shang away to block the flames caused by the explosion. Shi Shang hit the wall, but he felt a sharp pain in his back. A poisonous spike pierced through the wall and pierced her back. Xiao Huan. Ing Shang turned around and saw this scene. He was shocked and ran forward. The flames behind him followed closely like a poisonous snake. It would only take a second to completely engulf them. Chapter 1882. Shi Shang cut off the stinger behind and pulled out the remaining stinger without frowning. He stabbed the iron sword into the ground, and the ground cracked like a spider web. Invisible waves of air spread along the ground, forming a semicircular safe zone. The flames burned outside, but they couldn't spread in, and even the temperature dropped. The scorpion's poison was very strong, and Shi Shang's limbs slid down weakly. Ing Shang caught her and Ing Ji in time to prevent her from falling to the ground. Xiao Huan. Ing Shang put Ing Ji aside. Shi Shang took out some antidote pills from his space and ate them without caring about the side effects. Even if these pills were useless, they could buy him some time. The most important thing was to find Dog 2. Dog 2 didn't want to give it to him, but when he thought of the trauma of her dying because of a disagreement, Dog 2 reluctantly gave Shi Shang the pills. Xia Yi stood high up, and the firelight formed clusters of flames under his eyes, like a prairie fire. Yellow sand flew all over the sky, blinding everyone's eyes. When all the dust settled, Xia Yi landed on the ground with a few leaps. A few people stood behind him at the same time. They'll definitely be dead. Mr. Xia, don't worry. A gust of hot wind blew past, and Xia Yi closed his eyes. The sand hit his face and scalded him. He took a deep breath and said, "Within a month, I want all the bases to be destroyed." A few people looked at each other and bowed at the same time. Yes. Xia Yi turned around. The wind blew past, and a blurry figure could be seen in the distance. Xia Yi was shocked. He looked over and saw her black dress fluttering in the wind. A young girl was walking over. The black shadow left an afterimage in the air. When Xia Yi reacted, she was already in front of him. The iron sword fell from above, and it grew bigger and bigger in his eyes. Xia Yi was stunned. She didn't even say a word and attacked directly. What was the difference between this and a sneak attack? This was a sneak attack in broad daylight. Just as the iron sword was about to hit Shi Shang, Xia Yi dodged to the side. The yellow sand under his feet flew into the air and entered Shi Shang's field of vision. He took the opportunity to attack Shi Shang's lower body, but he missed. The person who was standing in front of him a moment ago had disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xia Yi quickly looked around. The slowly falling yellow sand rustled, but that black figure was nowhere to be seen. "Mr. Xia, up there!" Someone shouted from behind. Xia Yi raised his head, and a light flashed in his eyes. That strange sword fell from above, and the cold air reached his head. His limbs instantly felt as heavy as lead. Shia's heart sank. He could not die just like that. With a thought, the ground suddenly sank, quickly widening the distance between him and the Shi Shang. The sunken ground was filled with desert creatures. All sorts of desert creatures gathered together, and just looking at them made one's scalp tingle. Shi Shang stood at the edge and calmly took out 2 energy balls and threw them down. Boom! The ground trembled along with the rumbling sound, and the sand continued to fall. Shi Shang fanned himself with his hand, fanning away the sand that flew over. He frowned at the huge pit that had been blown up. Based on the way things were going, Xia was definitely not completely dead. She had to go up and finish him off. Shi Shang walked over to the edge of the pit. There was only sand inside. There was not even a desert lizard in sight, let alone Xia. Did the male lead use earth meld? Shi Shang looked to the other side. Xia's people were standing there just now. When they saw Shi Shang looking over, they all retreated. Just behind them, the sand suddenly rose up. Shaya was dragged out by someone. The others immediately helped and pulled him out, protecting Shaya as they continued to retreat. How could this woman be so scary? Especially the thing that had exploded just now. It did not seem like explosives. They could feel the terrifying power even though they were so far away. Goosebumps rose all over their bodies. It was too scary. However, Shang was thinking that it was not Shaya who knew Earthmeld. It was his subordinates who knew Earthmeld. The expert was beside the protagonist. How infuriating! Where's Ai's sword? Retreat! They saw that the situation was not right and quickly retreated with Shaya. One of them stayed behind and built a sand wall in the middle, blocking Shang's view. When Shang looked over, they were long gone. Running away when you can't win? That's not the protagonist at all. Come back if you dare. Damn it, a bunch of idiots. Cough cough. Shang's chest felt uncomfortable. He clutched his chest and coughed, his face turning pale and green. But face F*King tricked I again. Host, I've already told you very clearly just now. This medicine has side effects. Just bear with it. The system's voice sounded like it was gloating. It did it on purpose. So what? We're all hurting each other anyway. Shang took 2 deep breaths. Just you wait, I'm so scared. The system is going offline. Ji woke up on time after being unconscious for 6 hours. He had no idea that something major had happened while he was unconscious. But when he saw Shang's dark skin, as if someone had tossed him into a fire and roasted him over and over again, he frowned. He took off his jacket and threw it over Shang's legs, covering a part of him that was about to fall apart. Shang clutched his clothes, not daring to look at Ji. Shang. Shang stood up immediately. Here. Ji supported himself against the wall and stood up, staring at Shang. Why did you knock me out? His voice was still emotionless, but Shang knew that he was angry. Shang hesitated, his dirty face full of guilt. I'm sorry, Ji. I didn't do it on purpose. I just didn't know what to do. If he didn't do anything, he could only watch as he was abandoned. Shang and Ji talked for a long time, but Shang didn't appear from start to end. She only appeared after the two finished talking, munching on sunflower seeds. Shang lowered his head and walked past Shang, quickly disappearing from her sight. Are you okay? Shang pinched Ji's arm. Shang said that you're hurt? Ji held Shang's hand and looked her up and down. Is it serious? Shang turned around. Do I look like I'm hurt? Don't lie to me. Shang shrugged. She was indeed fine right now. So, it wasn't a lie. Ji obviously didn't believe him, but after observing for a long time, he couldn't see anything wrong with Shang. Ji didn't mention a word about what Shang had done, so Shang didn't mention it either. He only told him about Shaya. The two of them were confused as to why Shaya wanted to silence them. Shaya's actions were too different from a proper protagonist's style, so Shang couldn't guess what Shaya's motive was. Could it be related to the things we saw before? Shang was quick-witted. I got the method of using spiritual power from you. Maybe I was afraid that you had some special ability, so I made the first move. Ji paused for a moment before replying, maybe. Chapter 1883. Have you seen Shang? The next morning, Shadow Sacrifice came to Shang to ask. Shang shook his head. Why, he's gone. Yeah. Shadow Sacrifice frowned. I'll go look for him. Shang jumped up from the ground, patted the sand off his body, and followed Shadow Sacrifice to look for him. There had been an explosion yesterday, so there were ruins everywhere. They walked around the ruins and finally found him in a corner. Shang was lying on the ground, a layer of sand covering his body. He hadn't moved in a long time. Shadow Sacrifice. Shang was still conscious, but his body couldn't move. Low battery. Ying Ji pulled Ying Shang up and placed him on the side. At this moment, Ying Shang was like a doll without any ability to move. Now that the base was completely destroyed, unless he had solar power, he could only wait to go offline. However, Shadow Sacrifice had charging bases in other bases. Shi Shang brought them to the base, but there was no one there. The bloodstains were still fresh, proving that it had been attacked not long ago. Shadow Sacrifice quickly found the charging base, but when he connected it to Ying Shang, the light still didn't light up. Shadow Sacrifice. I think I'm broken. Ying Shang looked down, disappointment in his voice. Shadow Priest silently took out a toolbox from the side and nimbly checked Ying Shang. The results weren't satisfactory. Shadow Sacrifice tried to repair Ying Shang, but there were limited materials here. If they wanted to repair Ying Shang, they had to go back to Rongguang base and get the materials left over. But they didn't know if those things were destroyed. Shadow Sacrifice, am I broken? Ying Shang looked at Shadow Sacrifice pitifully. Shadow Sacrifice pressed his shoulder and didn't say anything. Ying Shang knew that he was broken, or Shadow Sacrifice wouldn't be so silent. Shadow Sacrifice threw Ying Shang out, leaving Shi Shang and Ying Shang behind. Shi Shang had a déjà vu of being a mistress. She was the legal wife. Shadow Sacrifice would check on Ying Shang every day. Perhaps because he couldn't move, Ying Shang's battery was slowly depleting, so he didn't go offline. Shi Shang went to Rongguang base to take a look. The base was completely destroyed, and Shadow Sacrifice couldn't do anything. Ying Shang stared at the ceiling above his head. His gaze was unfocused and his expression was wooden. He was like a robot without thoughts. Shi Shang took out some sunflower seeds and munched on them for a while before throwing them away. She got up and walked to Ying Shang's side, placing her hands on both sides of his head. I can fix you, but you have to return your spiritual power to Ying Shang. Ying Shang's unfocused eyes turned. If I return my mental strength to Shadow Sacrifice, will I regain my consciousness? I don't know. It's just a gamble, Shi Shang said in a relaxed tone. Let's see if you dare to choose. Intelligent robots could have their own consciousness. Even without Shadow Sacrifice's spiritual power, Shadow Student still had a 50% chance of gaining self-awareness and becoming a new intelligence. Ying Shang looked at the low battery that kept popping up in front of him. He did not seem to have a choice. All right. It was something the Shadow Sacrifice had given him, so he should return it. Will this work? Shadow Sacrifice was a bit worried. What are you afraid of? If you die, I'll be buried with you. Shi Shang pushed Shadow Sacrifice to Ying Shang's side and patted his head gently. Don't be afraid. I'm not afraid. Shadow Sacrifice shook his head and didn't continue. He glanced at Ying Shang, who had fallen into a deep sleep, and felt a bit conflicted. Although he was taking back what was his, he didn't know why he felt weird. Perhaps Ying Shang's emotions were affecting him. Let's begin. Shadow Sacrifice closed his eyes. He had to take back what was his. Shi Shang's method was just a theory. She had never put it into practice. Just as she said, if anything went wrong, she would be buried with Shadow Sacrifice. His heart ached for Feng Ci to have such a wife. She was using him as a lab rat. The process was a bit dangerous, but fortunately, the results were good. Ying Shang's aura had completely disappeared, and Shadow Sacrifice's aura was even stronger. It was no different from before, but it felt like something was missing. Although it belonged to Shadow Sacrifice, it had left him for a long time. Now that it was back in his body, it would take some time for it to merge. Thus, Shadow Sacrifice felt like he couldn't control himself. It was as if there were two people living in his body. While Shadow Sacrifice was recovering, Shi Shang practically took apart Ying Shang's body and replaced it with many materials that Shadow Sacrifice had never seen before. After changing all the parts, Shi Shang told Shadow Sacrifice to move Ying Shang out under the sun. And then... wait. Shi Shang pulled out a chair and sat down. Shadow Sacrifice looked at Ying Shang under the sun and frowned. What was he waiting for? The sun shone on Ying Shang's body. His body glowed with a cold metallic light. It was completely different from normal people's skin. The sun gradually set. Shadow Sacrifice didn't know what he was waiting for. When the sun completely disappeared under the horizon, there was a soft beep. Shang's eyelashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. You changed it to solar power? Shadow Sacrifice still didn't know why he put Shang under the sun. He was stupid. No. Shang smiled and shook his head. There was a hint of pride between his brows. It's light energy. As long as he wasn't locked in a completely dark room, he would always have electricity. Shadow Sacrifice. Light energy was something that only existed in theory. Shang's eyes moved, as if he was trying to figure out where he was. He tried to move his arms, raised his hands, and then moved his legs. He took a step forward, then paused. He lowered his head and looked at his legs in confusion. 3 seconds later, Shang raised his head and looked straight at Shadow Sacrifice. His neck turned left and right like a stiff robot. It took him a while to regain his mobility. While he was turning, his gaze followed Shadow Sacrifice. There was no human emotion in his eyes. He was no different from a robot that had just appeared. Shang. It seemed like he had failed. Shang's gaze moved away from Shadow Sacrifice and landed on Shang. He walked over with his hands and feet. Wife. Her crisp voice rang out. Shang almost fell to the ground from the shock. Who's your wife? Don't call me that. I was a married woman. Shang hid behind Shadow Sacrifice. He hadn't instilled any strange programming into Shang. So Shang's current actions were completely out of order. Wife. Shang's eyes were filled with confusion and innocence. He opened his arms. I want a hug. Hugging your head, my ass. I's not someone you can hug. Is it possible to destroy it? Shadow Sacrifice stared at Shang with a dark expression. He grabbed Shang's hand and exerted force. He didn't have that strange feeling towards Shang anymore. So when Shang tried to come closer, he threw a punch at him. Suddenly, this face was an eyesore. Asterisk. The above content is pure nonsense. Please don't take it seriously. Shang had always been cute. He wouldn't have turned evil. #asking for goosefoot flavored votes today. #July 31st, 2017. 01. Reviews. Glass Tower. Shuttles in the Rain. Chapter 1884. Shang squatted at the side, looking aggrieved. He kept glancing at them with resentful eyes, as if Shang and Ji had done something unspeakable in front of him. Ji's face was also dark, and he was surrounded by an oppressive aura. Shang, who was stuck in the middle, was in despair. What did I do wrong? You can't finish explaining your wrongdoings even after a few days. Retribution, it's all retribution. The system mocked Shang, but Shang quickly shut it down. Buttface, who was always weaker than its host, was very obedient. Shang didn't want to bring Shang along, but it was as if Shang had installed a tracking device on them. No matter where they went, he would be able to catch up. Wife, have some water. Shang handed something to Shang like a little wife, his eyes full of anticipation. Ji snatched the water from him and stuffed it into Shang's hands. He pulled Shang to his side and said coldly, "Don't go near her." Shang blinked and said innocently, "But she's my wife." Veins popped out on the back of Ji's hand. "She's not." "Exactly." Shang was stubborn. "She's my wife. Let go of my wife." Shang pushed Ji and tried to snatch Shang away. This was his wife. She should be with him. How could she stand with someone else? Ji blocked Shang behind him. "I dare you to take another step forward." Shang's foot froze in midair. He looked at Shang, then at Ji, who was looking fierce. He burst into tears. "You're all bullying me." Shang ran away crying. Shang's mind seemed to have stopped at the age of 10. He only thought that Sher Shang was his wife, but he couldn't even explain what a wife was. Like a child who wanted a toy, he thought that Sher Shang was his wife, so he stubbornly wanted to have her. Sher Shang was afraid that Ying Shang would pester her again, so he took Ying Ji and ran away. It wasn't easy for a human to survive in the desert, but it was much easier for a robot to survive in the desert. That's insane. Ying Shang only has the mind of a 10-year-old. He's just a child. Host, doesn't your conscience hurt? Sher Shang. Of course not. After all, I don't have a conscience. The only person I want is Feng Ci. What does everyone else have to do with me? Hee, you're cold-blooded, but you're right, okay? Sher Shang ran faster this time, so Ying Shang didn't catch up with him this time. Life in the desert was boring. Even though he could occasionally tease the shadow sacrifice, Sher Shang still found it boring. They seemed to be the only two living people left in the entire desert. The next time they heard news about Xia Yi, it was from a team that was traveling in the desert. They heard that he had attacked all the bases, and the survivors were scattered all over the desert. No one knew how many people were still alive. Meanwhile, Xia Yi opened up a base that he had built that could accept survivors. His only request was for them to submit to him. Ordinary survivors just wanted to live, so now they were rushing there. Sher Shang sighed. Is he going to proclaim himself king? The shadow sacrifice looked down at the yellow sand and said faintly, "This world will end sooner or later. It doesn't matter if he proclaims himself king or not." Sher Shang remembered what the shadow sacrifice had said before. If it weren't for the things that happened later, the shadow sacrifice would be researching how to leave this planet. If they wanted to leave this planet, they needed a spaceship. The universe was full of dangers, and spiritual power was the most important thing. Then how about we destroy this planet? Sher Shang said casually. The shadow sacrifice glanced sideways. His eyes shone brightly, reflecting the girl's figure. The yellow sand in the sky seemed to become illusory, leaving only that black figure. Inch by inch, it was engraved into his heart. He smiled gently, holding Sher Shang's hand and placing it on his chest. When I'm with you, everything is good. It doesn't matter. Their relationship was strange. They didn't need any explanation. They were together naturally. Perhaps he was born to wait for this person, waiting for her to walk into his heart. She occupied the top of his heart, and he was willing to bow down to her. Sher Shang's lips curved. He looked at the distant horizon. Shadow sacrifice, we should go. Go where? The shadow sacrifice was confused. There was a strange feeling in the bottom of his heart. Go home. Go home. Yes. Sher Shang glanced at him with a smile on her face. The shadow sacrifice guessed the meaning of going home. But why was he standing outside Xia Ye's base? And why was the person beside him so eager to try? The gate of the base was tightly shut. Sher Shang stood outside the gate, and the person above was looking down. Before they could figure out who the person below was and what he wanted, he had already rushed over with a large sword. The gate of the base couldn't withstand a single blow from the sword. When Xia Yi arrived, Sher Shang had already killed his way into the base. "Yu Huan, are you crazy?" Xia Yi scolded. "No." Sher Shang took the time to reply. "I'm just trying out how it feels to attack a base. It feels pretty good." Xia Ye's face darkened. Seeing that Sher Shang didn't intend to stop, she immediately summoned the desert creatures and Sher Shang to fight back. Everyone else retreated behind him. Compared to the last time, these desert creatures were bigger. She didn't know if it was because Xia Ye's ability had increased or because these desert creatures had grown taller. Xia Yi stood on the back of a poisonous scorpion and commanded the desert creatures to attack Sher Shang. "Yu Huan, surrender now and I'll let you live." Sher Shang used his iron sword to cut off a poisonous snake stinger. She looked back and smiled. Her smile was as light as the spring breeze. "Sorry, I've killed my way out." However, her arrogant tone made people want to beat her up. "You're courting death." Xia Yi waved her hand. Most of the desert creatures that were wandering around rushed towards Sher Shang, while the rest rushed towards the shadow sacrifice. Sher Shang glanced at them and just sneered. Then, he increased his speed of killing the desert creatures and rushed in Xia Ye's direction. Xia Yi commanded the scorpion to move. He remained calm. Yu Huan, look up. Sher Shang acted as if he didn't hear her. He rushed over and cut off one of the scorpion's legs with his iron sword. The scorpion's body tilted, and Xia Yi fell from it. Because of the pain, the scorpion spun around uncontrollably. Xia Yi was almost stabbed by the scorpion's leg. He dodged the scorpion and rolled to the other side. Suddenly, his vision darkened and a cold metal object pressed against his neck. Yu Huan. Xia Ye's voice suddenly stopped. He widened his eyes and slowly raised his head. You? He raised his finger with difficulty and pointed upwards. Sher Shang then looked over. Grandpa Yu was suspended in mid-air. Below him were the restless desert creatures, looking up at the delicious food above. Xia Ye's eyes were unfocused. His hand fell weakly, and Grandpa Yu's body suddenly fell. Sher Shang's fingertips moved slightly. Grandpa Yu's body suddenly flew towards the open space and landed steadily. Chapter 1885. After killing the male lead, of course Sher Shang had to be struck by lightning. The entire base was filled with the sound of thunder. When the thunderclouds dispersed, almost all the desert creatures in the base had run away, leaving only a few survivors. Grandpa Yu was shocked, and his voice was trembling. Are you okay? I'm fine. Sher Shang held the iron sword. Grandpa Yu's eyes were hazy. That's good, that's good. He was really scared just now. Just now. What happened? Grandpa Yu looked like he wanted to ask but didn't dare to. This granddaughter had become completely different from the one in his memory. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but he felt a sense of oppression when he stood with her now. The heavens are crazy. Ignore it. Grandpa Yu, there was so much lightning. How could the heavens be crazy? And it was a sunny day. There was only thunder and no rain. Most importantly, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the lightning just now was directed at Sher Shang. Was his granddaughter going to ascend to immortality? Grandpa Yu grabbed Sher Shang's arm and said excitedly, Huan, are you going to become an immortal in the heavens? Huh? Sher Shang was confused, but he still said pretentiously, Grandpa, I'm actually an immortal. Grandpa Yu's eyes widened. His granddaughter was an immortal? The reason this great immortal descended to the mortal world is to save you guys from the fire and water, blah blah blah. Sher Shang began her long speech, scaring Grandpa Yu into a daze. Grandpa, I'll leave this to you. After showing off, Sher Shang patted Grandpa Yu's shoulder and threw the rest of the base to him. After Sher Shang left, Grandpa Yu finally reacted. What immortal? That wretched girl was tricking him again. If she hadn't said the last part, he might have really believed her. However, no matter how he listened to her later words, they couldn't be any more fake. There was no desire to believe them at all. Sher Shang spun the iron sword, his thoughts in a mess. The male lead was dead and struck by lightning. Now it was time to kill the female lead. Then the plane would collapse and they could go back. But where was the female lead? No, where was his wife? Only then did Sher Shang remember to look for the shadow sacrifice. Shadow sacrifice had been at the entrance. Now, he was still at the entrance of the base, but there was one more person beside him, Ying Shang. Like a haunting ghost. Wife, wife. Ying Shang waved at Sher Shang excitedly. Am I awesome or not? I asked for it myself. Hee hee. Sher Shang arched his eyebrows and tied Ying Shang up in front of him, who was waiting for his praise, and threw him to Grandpa Yu. Wife. Ying Shang pouted pitifully. Grandpa Yu looked at Ying Ji in confusion, then at Ying Shang. Why were there two shadow sacrifices? Twins? Why didn't he remember having a twin brother in the Shadow Festival? There must be a mistake somewhere. Shao Ji. Grandpa Yu dragged Ing Ji to the side. What's going on? Who was he? Why did you call Huan a daughter-in-law? Wasn't his son-in-law a shadow sacrifice? Why did his son-in-law change hands without him knowing? Shadow sacrifice explained briefly, making it clear that Shi Shang had nothing to do with Ing Sheng. Grandpa Yu's thoughts couldn't catch up. He understood that Shi Shang had nothing to do with Ing Sheng, and Ing Sheng was a robot. He waved his hand. I don't care about you young people's matters. Xiao Ji, my only request is that you take good care of Huan. Shadow Sacrifice nodded slightly. Grandpa Yu, don't worry. I will take good care of her. Grandpa Yu patted his shoulder. Grandpa is old. I raised your mother. Now, I'm handing Huan over to you. I hope you won't let her down. Shadow Sacrifice looked at the person in the distance and said solemnly, I won't. How could he let her down? Grandpa Yu shook his head and sighed. He had done good things and bad things in his life. His only granddaughter was taken care of, so he had no regrets. Shi Shang looked for the female lead all over the world, but she seemed to have disappeared and couldn't be found. Since she couldn't find the female lead, she could only destroy the plane manually. First, she had to find a sunny day and bring Shadow Sacrifice along. Where are we going? Shadow Sacrifice stepped on the soft yellow sand and hooked his fingers around Shi Shang's hand. His palm was slightly hot. We're going to find a place with good feng shui. Shi Shang pulled him closer. Are you tired? Do you want me to carry you? I should be the one carrying you. What if his wife was too strong? Then carry me. Shi Shang stretched out his hand. Shadow Sacrifice. How reserved. Shadow Sacrifice shook his head and bent down to carry Shi Shang. Why are you looking for a place with good feng shui? To pray for rain? Shi Shang hooked his arms around Shadow Sacrifice's neck and pressed his cheek against his collarbone. His body was cool and comfortable. Shi Shang rubbed against him and said, To die. Shadow Sacrifice suddenly stopped in his tracks. He lowered his eyes and looked at Shi Shang. Why? You don't want to? Shi Shang looked up slightly and met his eyes. You aren't joking? You think I'm joking? Shi Shang didn't answer his question. Shadow Sacrifice was silent for a few seconds and continued walking forward. I've said it before. Anywhere is good when I'm with you. Even if he died, he wouldn't complain. They passed through the yellow sand and stopped on a sand dune. From here, they could see the desert in the distance. The scorching sun shone on the ground and the heat waves could be seen with the naked eye. Shi Shang slid down from Shadow Sacrifice's body but didn't let go. Her arms were still around his neck and her body was pressed against his chest. She reached out and caressed Shadow Sacrifice's cheek, her eyes rippling with emotions. I've made you suffer. Shadow Sacrifice was slightly puzzled. Shi Shang didn't intend to explain. She pulled out her iron sword and stood in the middle of the sand dune. Shi Shang looked at Shadow Sacrifice deeply. Shadow Sacrifice gently smiled back at her. Shenxing Shi Shang called out in his heart. Master. Shenxing's voice followed. Are you ready? Master can come back any time. Shenxing's voice was still soft and very pleasant to the ears. Let's begin. Yes, Master. Shenxing's voice fell silent. Shi Shang let go of the iron sword. The iron sword floated into the air and slowly rotated. The number of red petals gradually increased and revolved around the iron sword. The petals flew all over the sky and the entire desert was dyed in a demonic red. Shi Shang reached out to Shadow Sacrifice. Shadow Sacrifice stepped forward and placed his hand in her white palm. The two of them suddenly pulled closer. The petals fell from the sky and surrounded them, spinning quickly. In the gaps between the petals, Shi Shang seemed to see a figure rushing over from afar. He fell into the desert. Perhaps knowing that he couldn't catch up, he slowly got up and stood in the distance, watching her. His figure was bleak and lonely. It was as if he was the only one left in the world. The world was silent and he didn't know where to go. The petals in the air gradually became transparent until they completely disappeared. The sky was low and heavy, like a huge rock pressing down. * The 54th world ended. The next world was the real world. Chapter 1886. Rise and fall, honor and disgrace, all because of you. The bright future, all fear you. The dusty blood is boiling, the cold armor is clamoring, the beginning of the separation of flesh and bone, the mournful cry plays in heaven and earth, lighting up the beacon, the battlefield of light and shadow, the color of blood wanders in the darkness, devouring people's hearts, there is no place to tell, sin ignites in despair, obliterating good, the sleeping beast opens its evil eyes, the battle shakes the sky. The vengeful spirits cry resolutely, faith is like light, illuminating the road ahead, hand in hand. To face a troubled world side by side, honor and disgrace coexist, you walk on the light, break through the darkness, break the shackles, turn into a light guide, astrolabe, you come against the wind, break through the fog, break the cage, the commander reverses the chess game, flesh and blood destroy the blade, stepping on the bones to fight, souls board the battleship, splashing blood and singing behead thousands of troops, blood and heads for glory, break through the ambush from 10 sides, liquor shines for best. Friend sword light and sword shadows, good and evil are separated by the two ends of the galaxy, battle armor remains, life and death block the horizon, you walk on the light, break through the darkness, break the shackles, turn into a light guide, astrolabe, you come against the wind, break through the fog, break the cage, the commander reverses the chess game, rise and fall in heaven and earth. Fighting to the death, millions of corpses lie at the top of the galaxy, the wordless monument stands still, gazing into the distance, returning forever, the years offer sacrifices to the dead on all sides of the sky, the war has not ended, wanton enmity above the galaxy, you are the ruler, read. May you be as bright as the sea of stars, glorious for all ages, everlasting, may you be as dazzling as the moon and the stars, invincible, leaving your name in history, may you be as dazzling as the stars, intimidating the mountains and rivers, and making heaven and earth submit. The door of the spacious cabin opened silently. There was no movement inside for a long time. At this moment, the person inside flipped over and stood up. He held onto the edge and landed nimbly on the ground. The alarm sounded half a beat later, and the entire space was filled with that ear-piercing sound. Shang frowned and destroyed the alarm violently. Then, he looked at the hatch beside him and pressed the button to open it. The cabin door rose, and the young man was like a sleeping prince, waiting for a princess to wake him up. The Shang busied himself with the cabin wall for a while before reaching out to cover the young man's forehead. The person inside slowly opened his eyes, and an obedient smile appeared on his adorable face. Shang. Shang helped him up. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Feng Ci half leaned against her, his head pressed against her chest as he shook his head. No. Shang allowed him to calm down before letting him out. He put his arm around his waist and led him outside. Shang. Feng Ci suddenly pressed Shang to the side, and the familiar scent enveloped him. He was like a fish that had been hungry for a long time, carrying uneasiness and anxiety. He could only find a trace of comfort in her body. Shang was stunned at first, then relaxed his body and leaned against the cold metal door, responding to his request. When Feng Ci let go of her, it was already 10 minutes later. His cheeks were flushed, and he pursed his lips as he looked at Shang shyly. Previously, Shang. Feng Ci interrupted Shang, his eyes serious. If this is the only way to be with you, I have no regrets, and I won't back down. He knew what she wanted to say, but what happened before was no longer important. No matter how many storms there were, he would accompany her through them. That was enough. You're so considerate. I'm suddenly not used to it. Shang sighed. He had suffered a lot in those previous planes. Feng Ci leaned close to Shang and bit her ear. Shang, you can compensate me with other things. If it weren't for the wrong place, he would have been unable to resist. His hot breath brushed past Shang's ear, and her whole body seemed to heat up. She suppressed the restless thoughts in her heart. Stop fooling around. There are still people outside. You just woke up, so I'll take you to rest first. I still have to check to prevent any problems. Feng Xiai felt wronged, but he didn't refute Shi Sheng. He stood up straight. Shi Sheng gave him a light peck on his seductive lips before she reached out to open the heavy door. It was noisy outside. The moment the door opened, the entire space fell into dead silence. The Zhanlong guards standing outside the door immediately split into 2 rows, leaving a path for Shi Sheng to pass through. Caesar and Gina weren't far away, and Shi Feng seemed to be talking to them. At this time, he had restrained his expression and walked solemnly to Shi Sheng. "Master." Shi Sheng nodded slightly, and his gaze fell on the screen in the void. It was a street. At this time, the street was in chaos. People dressed in Royal Guard uniforms were arresting people all over the street, forcing them to come to a machine in the middle of the street. Shi Sheng looked at Caesar with a smile. "Zero stood me up again." Caesar's body shook, and his golden hair seemed to be about to stand up. "She actually came out on her own." Okay, she came out on her own before, so it wasn't a problem for her to come out on her own. Caesar put his hand to his lips and coughed. "Little Sheng, aren't you going overboard with your sarcastic remarks? Your Zhanlong guards didn't let us leave. Now that you're awake, can you let us go?" Caesar never thought that she would order the Zhanlong guards to not let them leave the blue planet. She didn't even allow them to go anywhere except this place. When there was chaos outside, he could only watch helplessly. "Compared to what you did to me, I don't think I went overboard." "I didn't even say that you went overboard." "How dare you say I went overboard?" Shi Sheng's smile was too frightening, and Caesar felt all the hair on his body stand up. "Send him back to rest first." Shi Sheng turned around and ordered Shi Feng. Shi Feng wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. He asked the Zhanlong guards to send Feng Xiai back to his room first. Feng Xi's gaze moved from Caesar to Shi Feng, and he left with the Zhanlong guards. After Feng Xiai left, Shi Sheng sat down. "I've done what I promised you. Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise." Caesar grabbed his golden hair. "Little Sheng, Shi Sheng interrupted him mercilessly. "Caesar, you know that if you don't fulfill your promise, there will only be one outcome, and that is to die here." Her voice was calm, and her eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. There weren't any ripples, but the words she said made one's hair stand on end. Caesar was conflicted, and said as if he had just lost his father, "Little Sheng, do you really have to be so heartless?" Shi Sheng glanced at him. "I thought you didn't know how to write the word, love." "I'm not illiterate, okay?" Caesar said immediately. Then, he remembered that it wasn't the time to be conflicted. He pretended to be serious. "Little Sheng, the outside world is a mess. Although the blue planet is safe for now, it doesn't mean it will be safe forever. We should be united now." Shi Sheng squeezed out a smile. "I've said it before. We've never been on the same boat. Either you fulfill your promise, or you die. I'll give you 3 seconds. Shi Sheng stretched out 3 fingers. 3. Caesar. Can you give me a knife? 2. Caesar took a deep breath. I'll give it to you, Gina. A fiery red figure walked over and handed a box to Shi Sheng. Master Shi, this thing can block the aura of an outsider. The repulsion of space will not appear again. Shi Sheng took the box and didn't even raise his eyebrows. Xia Chu. Asterisk, it's been too long, and I've completely forgotten what I wrote in the galaxy. It's so hopeless. If I don't update 5 chapters one day, it must be because I didn't finish it. I'm really naked right now, and I don't have a single draft. Chapter 1887. Xia Chu is in the Red Moon Galaxy. Caesar clenched his teeth. Shi Sheng looked at Caesar quietly. Caesar braced himself and met her gaze, pretending to be calm. Back then, I was the one who told you where Xia Chu was. I've already told you everything. Everyone knew how to take advantage of a loophole. Shi Sheng stood up with the box. Throw them out. Caesar. Again. Was he a thing? Shi Shang! Caesar shouted. Can't you listen to me? The girl was surrounded by the Zhanlong guards. She turned around and smiled. Our deal is done. I haven't settled the matter of you lying to me. If you want to settle it now, I don't mind. Caesar. Shi Shang left with the Zhanlong guards while Shi Feng stayed behind to throw Caesar out. Caesar took a few deep breaths. Shi Feng, tell her about the current situation. It's not the time for her to be willful. Shi Feng was expressionless. Your Excellency Caesar, do you want to leave by yourself or do you need me to do it for you? Shi Feng. Caesar was furious. You're still letting her do whatever she wants. Do you really think she's omnipotent? Shi Feng looked up and met Caesar's gaze. He replied solemnly, Your Excellency Caesar, Shi Feng is loyal to the master. Caesar clenched his fists in anger. He was so frustrated that he couldn't even maintain his image. He grabbed his messy blonde hair and silently vented for a moment. Let's go. Shi Feng personally sent Caesar out of the blue planet. Caesar stood on the boarding slide and looked down at the man below. Shi Feng, the world has changed. Shi Feng was silent. Regardless of whether the weather changed or not, he believed that the patriarch would be able to lead them to the peak. He firmly believed. Therefore, he didn't need to be lost. He just needed to follow the master's footsteps. Caesar seemed a little disappointed. He turned around and entered the spaceship. Inside the spaceship, Mu Bai was drinking his coffee. He was shocked when he saw Caesar enter. She's out? Caesar hadn't come out since he entered the blue planet. The blue planet was under high security. Other than the Zhanlong guards, no one could enter or leave. He must have come out now because the Shi Shang had come out. Mu Bai's eyelids drooped slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. As expected of the Shi Shang, he came out so quickly. Why are you still here? Before Caesar could say anything, Gina was furious. This was their spaceship. How could this person be so shameless and not leave? As a gentleman, he couldn't be angry with a girl. I want elegance. After Mu Bai recited the words elegance in his heart, he put down the coffee and smiled elegantly. Miss Gina, this spaceship seems to belong to Director Caesar. He hasn't said anything yet, and you want to drive me away? Chief, look at him. Caesar raised his hand. You can leave first. Gina snorted and left. Caesar pulled out a chair and sat down after her figure disappeared. Mu Bai, what is your purpose? Alive. Mu Bai's reply was as concise as ever. His goal was simple, to survive by any means necessary. Caesar looked at him deeply, weighing the authenticity of his words. After a while, he said, The Alliance has been completely controlled by Zero. The royal family of the Nether Star System is also under Zero's control. The other major administrative planets have also fallen, and only the 6 major families can barely resist. Mr. Mu, what do you think our chances of winning are? Mu Bai rubbed his fingertips against the edge of the coffee cup. His voice was gentle and elegant. Even Director Caesar can't break out of this situation. You think too highly of me. Caesar's aura surged, and the air seemed to freeze. It was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Mu Bai smiled and didn't seem to be nervous. Mr. Mu, you didn't just rely on luck to survive until now, did you? Caesar broke the strange atmosphere, and the air seemed to flow again. Mu Bai smiled. Of course, I also relied on my beauty. Caesar was speechless. The two parted on bad terms. Mu Bai's plan was flawless, and Caesar still couldn't figure out whether Mu Bai was friend or foe. Such a person should be dealt with by the Shi Shang. Director Caesar planned for so long, but in the end, she still didn't fall into the trap. Mu Bai stood up and smiled sarcastically. He knocked on the table and then left. Caesar was speechless. He used to think that he could control everything, but later on, he understood that Shi Shang wasn't someone who could be controlled by others. He could scheme against her for a while, but he couldn't scheme against her forever. The most important thing was that he couldn't be her enemy. Caesar didn't want to admit that when faced with a pervert, he was willing to admit defeat. No, Mu Bai couldn't even protect himself. How could he laugh at him? F***ck. The situation in the Red Moon star system is better. Zero doesn't control many forces, but as time goes on, it won't be able to hold on. After all, Zero is everywhere. Shi Fengxing explained the current situation to Shi Shang in detail. It had only been a month since she went in, but Zero had already controlled so many forces. It was obvious that Zero didn't intend to negotiate from the beginning. Just as Shi Shang had guessed, it was just stalling for time. As for Caesar, there was no evidence to prove whether he knew or not. If he knew, then he had other plans. If he didn't, then he was stupid. Shi Shang clicked on the virtual interface and browsed through the information that had been sorted out. She closed the interface. Caesar said that Xia Chu is in the Red Moon star system. Find a way to investigate. Is Miss Xia Chu really still alive? Shi Fengxing was surprised. Although he already knew, he was still a little surprised to hear the exact news. I don't know. Caesar always leaves some clues when he speaks. You'll have to investigate to know whether it's true or not. She didn't believe Caesar from the beginning. Whether Xia Chu was still alive or not, she would only believe the truth that she found out herself. But, if Miss Xia Chu is still alive, why didn't she find a way to contact us? Shi Fengxing raised his doubts. Miss Xia Chu was also very smart. If she was really alive, even if she was captured, she would definitely find a way to send a message to the family head. It's hard to say whether she's still alive or not. Shi Shang had a faint smile on her face. No one could tell her true emotions. Sometimes, one couldn't expect too much. Otherwise, when disappointment came, one could only fall into despair. Shi Fengxing knew that he had misspoken. He lowered his head. Family head, what if we find Miss Xia Chu's whereabouts? Shi Shang tapped her fingertips on the table. Her tone was as calm as ever. Let's talk about it when we find out. Tell us about the situation on the blue planet. Shi Shang changed the topic. Shi Fengxing didn't dare to mention it again. Zero tried to break into the blue planet, but it was stopped in the end. You can rest assured about this, family head. It's just that the residents of the blue planet are a little panicked. I'm afraid it will cause more panic as time passes. Shi Shang snorted coldly. If they're panicking here, then drive them out. Shi Fengxing, family head, is it really okay for you to be so willful? Chapter 1888. Master, what orders do you have? Shi Feng's voice was always so serious. He was ready to do anything for Shi Sheng. Activate the Limitless. Gather the 10 Zhonglong guards and prepare to depart. Shi Feng's eyes widened. The Limitless, Master Xia had personally built it. The meaning of the word limitless was that there were unlimited possibilities and no limits. The Limitless was the pinnacle of the Xia family's power. But just as the Limitless was delivered to the Master, something happened to the Xia family. The Master had never activated the Limitless before. They had never seen what the Limitless was like. But anything made by the Xia family was definitely not an ordinary item. Now, the Master wanted to activate the Limitless. Shi Feng took a deep breath. Master, the Limitless used Shen Xing as its core intelligence. Without Shen Xing, just go and make the preparations. Yes. Shi Feng was excited. The Master was about to do something big. Seeing that Shi Shang was about to hang up, Shi Feng hurriedly said, Master, are you only bringing 10 Zhonglong guards? The Zhonglong guards had 10 teams. 10 teams meant 10 teams. The 10 teams had the smallest number of people, but they were all-round talents. Those who could enter the 10 teams were chosen from the other 9 teams. Enough. Shi Shang said casually, I'm just bringing them to support the situation and protect Feng Ci. I don't need them. Shi Feng. Well, the Patriarch had always been a lone wolf. If it wasn't for Feng Ci, the Master wouldn't have brought a single person. We'll depart in 3 days. Shi Shang threw down the time and ended the call. Shi Fong looked at the empty space. His expression was still solemn as he replied, "Yes. 3 days." He had to arrange everything on the blue planet in 3 days. Time was tight. I forgot to ask the master where he was going. Whatever, it was the same wherever he went. When the Zhanlong guards heard that they were going to go with Shi Shang, they were all excited. But when they heard that only the 10 teams could follow, the 10 teams received friendly greetings from the other 9 teams. After the ruckus, the 10 squadrons were sent to prepare for the Limitless. The Limitless ship had been parked in the main house of the Shi family. When the Zhanlong guards rushed back to the main house, the people in the main house were all trembling in fear, thinking that everything was fine. In the end, the Zhanlong guards ignored them and went straight to the back of the Shi family's house where the various spaceships were placed. The Shi family was curious and followed them to take a look. Most of the spaceships owned by the Shi family were snatched and thrown here by the Shi Shang. There were also some that were manufactured by their own businesses. In short, it was a mess and there were a lot of them. What are the Zhanlong guards doing? What is the Patriarch trying to do now? The family head hasn't shown up for almost a month. I wonder if something has happened to him. The blue planet is so safe now. What could possibly happen to the family head? Can't you just hope for the best? The person who spoke was obviously a die-hard fan of Shi Shang. Why are you so fierce? I was just speaking casually. The clan head hasn't shown up for so long, and everyone is uncertain. What did I say wrong? The other party was also very unconvinced. The more they spoke, the more agitated they became. They had already started arguing. That's enough. Shi Fong and the Zhanlong guards are still here. Even if the family head is in trouble, it won't be your turn. Behave yourselves. Someone at the side tried to smooth things over. Although they couldn't see Shi Shang, Shi Fong and the Zhanlong guards could. The villa was also well protected, proving that the family head was still fine. The crowd suddenly exclaimed. All the arguments disappeared at the same time as they looked at the lawn where the spaceships were parked. Oh my God! The huge lawn was now split in the middle, revealing a dark gap. The place they were at was also moving. The entire main house of the Shi family was moving, separating into 2 sides. The gap became bigger and bigger, and the scene below became clearer. A completely black metal object appeared in front of them. When the light shone on it, it reflected a luster. It didn't look like something that had been placed underground for many years. It was only the size of a normal spaceship and was shaped like an eagle spreading its wings, looking down on the heroes. At the front was a silver-white flower with a red stamen. Under the flickering light, it seemed to be coming to life. Below it were 2 words engraved in the same color. The Limitless. Someone read out the 2 words. Then, he said excitedly, "It's the Limitless. When the Xia family sent it here, I only saw it once. After that, I never saw it again. I didn't expect it to be below us all this time." What's the Limitless? Someone asked in confusion. They had never heard of this before. It was sent by the Xia family. The Xia family. However, someone caught the main point. The things produced by the Xia family were still coveted even now. What's that? Someone pointed at a black shadow beside the Limitless and said hesitantly, "Why does it look like a super mech to me?" What do you mean? That's it. The person beside him rolled his eyes. Isn't the red blade in Miss Shi Yu's hands? The Shi family had a super mech. Everyone in the Shi family knew about it, and it had been taken for a long time. Shi Yu was born of the first wife and was very talented. She was very smart and never went against Shi Shang. She also had the red blade, so her life in the Shi family was very comfortable. The person beside him immediately showed off. That's the silver fox. I don't know where the family head got it from. I even brought people to fix it. But I never saw it again. I thought the family head kept it for herself. Who knew that she threw it here? Silver fox. Don't tell me it's the silver fox from the Red Crescent Galaxy. Is there a second silver fox in the entire galaxy? Everyone. The family head was really so stubborn. This was a super mech, not a normal mech. She actually threw it here. Just as these people were discussing, the Limitless slowly rose from below. Its full appearance was revealed. Everyone looked up at the Limitless that was about to spread its wings and soar into the sky. The preparation work was meticulous and boring. They had to check every place repeatedly. Other than watching at the beginning, the Sher family gradually lost interest. After all, anyone would be tired after looking at a motionless thing for a few hours. 2 days later, Sher Shang brought Feng Ci back to the main house. A group of people stood in the distance, not daring to approach. Most people's gazes fell on the delicate young man beside Sher Shang. The young man was like a luminous object. His every move radiated light, making people feel comfortable and warm. But this was just an illusion. When the young man's gaze swept over, it was as if they fell from heaven to hell. They didn't understand how such an extreme person could exist. Was it really not a split personality? Everyone nervously stepped back, not daring to look at the young man again. They only hoped that he would quickly walk over. This kind of pervert should be left to the family head. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little Fairy, I really hope that one day, you will tell me that such useless tickets should be left to Little Fairy. Cherub. What are you going to do with them if they're useless? Little Fairy, they're useless to you, but they're useful to me. Cherub, what's the use? Eat them as food. Little Fairy, they can soothe my cold heart. They're fire, they're hope, they're... Cherub, let's go eat. Little Fairy. Chapter 1889. The Limitless wasn't big, and it was Sher Fong's first time on it. He asked Sher Shang curiously, Master, the Limitless doesn't seem to be very powerful. During the previous inspection, he'd specifically checked that the Limitless was equipped with 4 particle cannons. These weapons were standard on ordinary passenger spaceships. It was dangerous outside. Was it really okay to drive the Limitless out? He'd thought that since it was built by the Xia family, it must be awesome. But after seeing it, he realized that wasn't the case. It was just a freaking spaceship. It couldn't even be considered a battle-type spaceship. Yes, what's the problem? Sher Shang asked seriously. Sher Fong's mouth twitched. Why don't we use the traceback? In the past, when the master wanted to bring people out, they usually used the traceback. Don't underestimate the Limitless. Sher Shang tucked a strand of hair behind his ear. How can the things she built be as useless as you see them? Sher Fong was stunned. Then he realized that the things made by the Xia family couldn't be seen on the surface. Every part could be called a killing weapon. He must have been so busy these days that he forgot about this. Sher Shang first sent Feng Ci back to the resting cabin, then went to the main control room. The main control room was empty except for a round table in the middle. There was an operating platform on the round table. Other than that, there was nothing else. At this time, the main control room was blue, and the star map was suspended in the air. Master, where's Shen Xing? Without Shen Xing, they couldn't activate the Limitless. Sher Shang passed through the virtual star map and stepped onto the round table. His palm brushed across the table, and the star map in the air disappeared at the speed of light. The entire control room lit up. Master! A soft voice sounded. Shen Xing's figure was projected into the air. Behind her was pitch black, and there were occasional flashes of light. It was eerie. Shen Xing waved at Sher Fong, calling him cheerfully, Sher Fong, Sher Fong. Sher Fong didn't know why, but seeing that Shen Xing was fine, he felt relieved. An imperceptible smile appeared on his usually solemn face. He then nodded slightly in response. Sher Shang held the platform and went straight to the point. Activate the Limitless. Yes, Master. Shen Xing did not do anything, but the surroundings began to make sounds. All kinds of lights lit up, and the sound of the spacecraft operating slowly sounded. Shen Xing's little face was very focused. After a while, he said, The limitless system has been successfully activated. Preparing to activate the energy module. Estimated time required is 1 minute. The energy module has been successfully activated. Preparing to close all doors. Estimated time required is 30 seconds. All cabin doors have been closed. Initiating Infinite's preheating system. Estimated time, 2 minutes. Energy transfer successful. The Limitless is ready to take off. All personnel please prepare for liftoff. The countdown begins, 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. As the last word fell, the Limitless shook slightly and then stabilized. When Shifeng came back to his senses, the report from Shen Xing had become, "You have left the blue planet. Please plan your route." Shifeng. WTF. He left the blue planet in just a few seconds? The Limitless was actually going to warp directly on the blue planet. It was going to ascend to the heavens. The most frightening thing was that other than the initial shaking, he didn't feel anything else afterward. Shishang clicked randomly on the platform. The route has been planned. Switching to automatic mode, Shenxing's tense little face slowly softened. She reached out and rubbed her chubby face, blinking her big watery eyes. "Master, when can I come back? Have you finished what I asked you to do?" "Of course." Shenxing raised his chin proudly. Wait for me." Shenxing puffed up her cheeks. "Then I'll wait for Master." Shishang left the round platform and left slowly. Shifeng saw that Shenxing was still there, so he coughed and walked over. Shifeng, did you miss me?" Before Shifeng could say anything, Shenxing shouted first. "I missed you so much. Play games with me. I'm so bored." Shifeng. She missed him just to play games? Other than being serious when talking to the family head, she usually just wanted to play. This time, he didn't know where the family head had sent her. Seeing that she was pitiful, he reluctantly played with her. "What game?" "The one we played last time." Shenxing's eyes sparkled. She looked at Shifeng as if he was her family. She was almost moldy in this place. No one talked to her, and she couldn't even play games. She seemed to have forgotten to ask where the family head was going. "Shenxing, where is the end of the route set by the family head?" "I'm here." Shenxing's face was matter-of-fact. "Where are you?" Shenxing tilted her head. Her chubby little hand pointed in the void, and a star map appeared in front of her. Shenxing's little hand started from a point until it connected to the end. Different symbols automatically appeared along the line. They were all coordinates, universal in the galaxy. Shifeng was very familiar with them. As more and more symbols appeared, Shifeng's expression became more and more strange. How was the family head going to cause trouble? Yen family. Yen Lin hurried in from outside. The young man's face had become more mature. At this moment, his brows were full of anxiety. "Grandpa, something happened." "I already know." The family head raised his hand, indicating that Yen Lin shouldn't panic. But Yen Lin wasn't as calm as the family head. "Grandpa." The family head pulled Yen Lin. His wrinkled face was solemn. "Lin, what did I teach you in the past?" Yen Lin opened his mouth, but under the gaze of the family head, he swallowed his words. The family head retracted his gaze in satisfaction. He paced with his hands behind his back. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "The biggest possibility of the star web collapsing is that person from the Sher family. This isn't a bad thing for us. Send someone to inform the family heads of Ji and Jean to meet at planet N68. Grandpa, will it be safe to go out now?" Yen Lin was worried. Although the star web had collapsed, it didn't mean that Zero didn't need to be on guard. Zero can't even take care of herself now. She doesn't have time to watch over us. If we don't act now, we won't have another chance when Zero stabilizes herself. Can't she destroy Zero? Since she could make the star web collapse, it didn't seem difficult to destroy Zero. What do you think Zero is? The family head shook his head. If it was so easy to destroy, why would we be so afraid of it? Also, if Zero is destroyed, it would be a devastating blow to the entire galaxy. Go quickly. The family head waved his hand. They were now racing against time with Zero. Every minute and second was precious. Yes. The star web collapsed suddenly. Without any warning, they couldn't log in. All the devices that were bound to the star web couldn't be used. Fortunately, the big families had already changed some things to gene activation. They did it to prevent Zero from going crazy. They didn't expect it to be of great help now. Chapter 1890. As the head of the Yen family said, Zero wasn't easy to deal with. Although Shi Shang had destroyed the star network, he hadn't caught Zero. The result of the collapse of the star network was that all the places lost contact. The distance between the planets was so far. Although it didn't take as long as before with the current navigation technology, it was still not as convenient as when there was the star network. This was only the first thing caused by the collapse of the star network. The second thing was that Zero had lost contact with the robots or the humans who had been assimilated by him. Without Zero's instructions, these robots and humans were like gibberish, creating chaos and riots everywhere. One robot could be subdued, but what about 10, 100, or even an army? Master. Shen Xing stood in front of Shi Shang, feeling wronged. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop him. Shen Xing couldn't be blamed for this. She had tried her best. Shi Shang didn't expect to catch Zero so quickly. After all, it was the mastermind. It must be fake that it was easy to deal with. Destroying the star network was not much different from her plan. Okay, go play with Shi Feng. Shi Shang pinched Shen Xing's face. Master, I want to play with you. The figure opened her eyes. She hadn't played with her master for a long time. A cold gaze drifted over. Shi Shang let go. I'm busy. Go find Shi Feng. Shen Xing pouted. Her master wasn't busy. She glanced at Feng Ci, who was already emitting cold air. She pouted again and ran out of the room. Shi Feng was outside. Shen Xing bumped into his leg. What are you doing? Is something chasing you? Shi Feng grabbed Shen Xing's collar and tried to pull her away. Shen Xing reached out and hugged his leg. Humph. Shi Feng. What are you snorting for? Why are you hugging me? Shi Feng tried to pull her away, but he couldn't. He could only wear this leg accessory. Is Feng Ci inside? Shi Feng asked the leg accessory. The leg accessory was very unhappy. Ever since her master had a new lover, he didn't care about her at all. Now that she had fallen out of favor, she was very unhappy. Hugs couldn't make her feel better. I don't know, the leg accessory said angrily. Then he was inside. The reason why Shen Xing was like this must be because the master favored Feng Ci. Then I'll come back in a bit. With Feng Ci inside, it was better for him to retreat. Who asked her to be the patriarch's most treasured person? Shi Feng picked up the little thing hanging from his leg and placed it on his shoulder as if he was holding a soft pet. Shi Feng patted her back to soothe her fur and changed the topic. Where are you going now, master? Red Moon, Shen Xing answered weakly. Red Moon. Is master going to look for Xia Chu? Shen Xing was a little afraid of Feng Ci, so most of the time, he made Shi Feng's leg pendant. When Shi Feng was doing something, he also hugged his thigh and watched from the side. His dark eyes rolled around. People who didn't know him would think that he was up to no good. In any case, the two of them were often together in the past. Everyone was used to it, so no one found it strange. There was no day or night in the universe, and it could only be distinguished by time. Shi Shang's biological clock had always been punctual. He woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Feng Ci's arm was placed across her waist. Shi Shang turned around and pulled her into his arms. Feng Ci was curled up in her arms like a baby, revealing his perfect side profile. Shi Shang planned to hug him and sleep for a while longer, but Shi Feng's phone beeped for him. What's wrong? Shi Shang answered and lowered his voice. Master, switch to the outside of infinity. Shi Shang frowned, but still switched. The scene outside immediately appeared in front of Shi Shang. Not far from infinity, there were a few spaceships fighting. One of them looked a little shabby, as if it had been on the run for its life for a long time. The rest of the spaceships were all the same, marked with the Red Moon Royal Family's logo. Master, should we go around or wait for them to finish fighting? Shi Feng asked Shi Shang. As a follower who had followed Shi Shang for many years, of course, Shi Feng knew that Shi Shang didn't have the option to save people. Go around. Yes. Shi Feng let Shunxing control infinity to go around the battle area. Who knew that before they even moved, that shabby spaceship suddenly flew towards them. From the screen, it was the spaceship that was sent flying uncontrollably towards them. Just as it was about to hit infinity, infinity tilted downwards and successfully avoided it. The spaceship steadied itself not far from them. But in the next second, a dense wave of attacks flew out from the Red Moon Royal Family spaceships like meteors. Infinity was in front of that spaceship, so it would definitely be affected. Shi Feng was so shocked that he prepared to defend and attack. But looking at the empty control room, he remembered that infinity was completely controlled by Shunxing. Shunxing's little face was tense as he quickly controlled the screen. When the wave of attacks was in front of him, infinity continued to sink. The meteor streaked across the sky above them. The spaceship behind them suddenly exploded, and the flames lit up the universe. They still want to attack us, Shunxing said angrily. Master, can I attack? That spaceship had already exploded, but the other spaceship didn't give up on attacking. Encountering such troublemakers, Shi Shang naturally had to teach them how to behave. Shunxing got Shi Shang's permission and immediately went into attack mode. Several dark holes suddenly appeared on infinity's wings, and bowl-sized black plum metal discs shot out from the holes. Flying at high speed, the discs rubbed against each other and created sparks. The people on the other spaceship tried to stop the discs, but the discs would split into even smaller plum metal discs, passing through the flames caused by the explosion and shooting towards the other spaceship. The spaceship silently exploded in the distance like a firework, magnificent and magnificent. Shi Feng couldn't close his mouth, but in order to not lose his composure, he returned to a serious expression before the others could react. Shunxing, why didn't you use the particle cannon? That thing just now looked very awesome, and it blew up the other spaceship with just a little bit. Shouldn't this kind of thing be left for later? Shunxing blinked and pointed at the screen in front of him. But this is the lowest level weapon. Shi Feng looked at the screen. There were several neat rows of different symbols on it, using the common symbols of the interstellar. The plum metal disc was indeed the lowest level weapon. Did the infinity have so many weapons? There seemed to be another page at the back, full of diagrams, dazzling him. The most important thing was that the standard particle cannon of the passenger spaceship he saw before was actually labeled as Beyond S? Did he see wrongly? Or did he see wrongly before, and that wasn't a particle cannon? Shi Feng had goosebumps all over his body. The Xia family was too scary. No wonder they only made personal weapons and never made spaceships or weapons with more destructive power. With this kind of power, they could just lie down and win. Not to mention the alliance coveting the Xia family, everyone would be jealous. He didn't know whether to rejoice or regret that the Xia family was destroyed. The Xia family was very awesome. As for why they were destroyed, it was all because there was a traitor. So don't ask me stupid questions like why the Xia family was so awesome and destroyed in the end, because I will tell you, it's because of the plot. Chapter 1891. When Feng Ci woke up, he was just in time to see the last spaceship explode in space like fireworks. He frowned and leaned against Shi Shang without moving, greedily rubbing against her scent. Before you met her, you would never know how addictive a person's scent could be. Why are you like a dog? Shi Shang reached out to touch Feng Ci's face, then pushed him away in disdain. Move away, it's so hot. Feng Ci felt wronged. Does my wife dislike me? Shi Shang. Dislike? What the hell? She just wanted him to move away. Why did he make her feel like a heartless man? Shi Shang couldn't stand Feng Xi's wronged look. Alright, little ancestor. Feng Xi immediately took advantage of her and hugged Shi Shang tightly. He liked her scent, liked seeing her face in the morning, liked everything about her. Shi Shang felt like he had nothing to live for. What does it feel like to be teased by my wife every morning? My wife wants me to be a fatuous ruler every day. Feng Xi was a little dishonest. Shi Shang forcefully pulled her hand away and said sternly, "Stop fooling around, we're doing business." "Here's the business." Feng Xi pulled her hand to his chest. Shi Shang. There was nothing wrong with what he said. She couldn't refute it. Shi Shang patted his face. "Calm down. You have to be a fatuous ruler who can withstand temptation." Shi Shang wrapped Feng Xi in the blanket. "Stop fooling around." Feng Xi felt wronged. Why was he fooling around? Shi Shang. What kind of sin did she commit? "Can you let me go? I'm doing business." But the reality was, Shi Shang cut off the call. "Screw business. My wife is the most important." Shi Fang and Shen Xing didn't understand why Shi Shang's call was cut off. At first, there was no sound. Shi Fang guessed that Feng Xi was awake and the family head was talking to him, so he turned off the sound. After that, there was no image. Shen Xing looked up at Shi Fang and asked pitifully, "Shi Fang, why did the master block me?" She was so good just now, but the master didn't even praise her. He was unhappy. "Shi Fang. How would I know why the patriarch blocked you?" Shen Xing got down from the round platform angrily and went straight to the cabin where Shi Shang was. Shi Fang reacted and quickly caught up with Shen Xing. "Where are you going?" "Go find master." Shen Xing pried Shi Fang's hand away. "Let go of me. I'm going to find master." How could Shi Fang dare to let go? His grip tightened until it reached the armpit. "If you dare to go now, clan head will dare to forbid you from becoming like this." Shen Xing was originally struggling, but when she heard Shi Fang's words, she immediately hugged his arm. "Why? What do you think master and young master Feng Xi can do together?" Shen Xing was very smart. With Shi Fang's reminder, she immediately understood. She pouted and snorted. She probably wanted to say something bad about Feng Xi, but she was afraid that Shi Shang would scold her. In the end, she only snorted. Shi Fang shook his head helplessly and dragged her back to the control room. The remnants of the spaceship's explosion had already drifted into the universe. Shen Xing sat directly on the control panel and swung her little feet. The pendants on the princess's dress clanked non-stop. Her little face was expressionless. She reached out her little hands to operate the virtual interface. Shi Fang couldn't help much and could only stand aside and watch. "Shi Fang, there's someone here." Shen Xing's tone was full of surprise. "He can move. He's alive." Shi Fang hurried over to take a look. On the holographic screen, a heavy figure was grabbing the top of the spaceship. Because the spaceship was moving too fast, he needed to use all his strength to hold it steady. Shen Xing's eyes lit up. "We're almost at the transition point. Let me see if he can survive." Shen Xing. Before Shi Fang could finish, the spaceship had already begun its transition. The transition would be affected, but it couldn't be seen. When the spaceship stabilized, Shi Fang hurriedly looked at the screen. The person was still there, but he was being dragged. There was something tied to his waist and the spaceship. "Is he dead?" Shen Xing looked at the screen curiously. Her eyes almost fell inside. She wanted to see if this person was still alive. However, after observing for a while, the person didn't move. He just rose and fell with the spaceship. For a moment, it was impossible to tell whether he was alive or dead. "Shi Fang, is he dead?" Shi Fang shook his head. He couldn't tell whether he was dead or not. This person should be the survivor of the people who had fought just now. To be able to climb to the infinity and travel such a long distance with it, he must have some ability. What do we do now? Shen Xing pouted. Shi Fang looked at the human streamer and said with a serious face, "Let's wait for the family master to decide." Shen Xing had no objections. She had been observing the person and found that he could still move. It was as if she had discovered a new continent. A person without a mech or a spaceship could withstand the power of the transition. After that, Shen Xing jumped again. After this time, the person didn't move. Shi Fang guessed that he was dead. Withstanding one transition was already a fantasy. Being able to keep his body intact after 2 transitions was already unbelievable. If he was still alive, he might have a heart attack from the shock. The moment Shi Shang came out, he heard the Zhanlong guards discussing that someone had died on the spaceship. She was stunned. Since when was there someone on the Infinity? What happened? Shi Shang grabbed one of the Zhanlong guards. "Family Master." The Zhanlong Wei exclaimed and explained, "Just now, God Travel realized that there was someone on our spaceship, so he did a jump. In the end, that person was still alive, so God Travel did a second jump. He is still behind our spaceship." "Family Master." The Zhanlong Wei exclaimed and explained, "Just now, God Travel realized that there was someone on our spaceship, so he did a jump. In the end, that person was still alive, so God Travel did a second jump. He is still behind our spaceship." "Person? Still alive? Didn't he get crushed during the transition? Are you sure it's a person?" "I didn't believe it." The Zhanlong guard nodded seriously. Shen Xing and the executive saw it together. "Are you sure they didn't see it together?" Shi Shang still didn't believe it. The Zhanlong guard's mouth twitched. He said carefully, "This possibility isn't big." That was the executive Shi Fang and Shen Xing of the Zhanlong guards. How could something like that happen? Shi Shang accepted it helplessly. Is he dead or alive? The Zhanlong guard was conflicted, probably dead. After the second transition, there was no movement. Weird things happened every year. This year, there were a lot of weird things. A normal person was hung on her spaceship as a flag. There was cat biscuits. Where are Shen Xing and Shi Fang? The Zhanlong guard immediately pointed in a direction. Over there. #today. I want to monopolize the spring flavor ticket #daily requests for monthly tickets. Daily requests. The kind that acted cute and rolled around. 2017. 08. 02 Book Review Area Flip Yu Sheng. Chapter 1892. Shi Shang found Shi Fang and Shen Xing. The two of them sat facing each other and played games. Shi Fang was frowning. It was obvious that he was tortured badly by Shen Xing, master. Seeing Shi Shang enter, Shen Xing jumped up and hugged Shi Shang's waist. "You're here." Shi Fang subconsciously looked behind Shi Shang. Behind him were the Zhanlong guards. He heaved a sigh of relief when he didn't see the young man who changed his face faster than flipping a book. If that person was here, Shen Xing would be in trouble again. The possessiveness of the patriarch was as strong as the possessiveness of the patriarch. In fact, it was even stronger than the patriarch. Shi Shang rubbed Shen Xing's head. "What's with the person hanging outside?" Shi Fang turned off the game and said seriously, "Shen Xing found him. I've sent people up to take a look, but he's quite far away. I can't confirm if he's dead or alive." "Let's go take a look." Yes. The top of the ship was a beautiful leisure area. There were many green plants, chairs, and tables. The top was transparent. It could be opened when needed. Lying down, one could see the vast starry sky. No one cared about the vast starry sky. All their attention was on the willful streamer outside. The rope was tied to the top, but the person had already floated to the edge. He moved with the ship like a kite. "Head of the family, what do you think?" Shi Fang asked Shi Shang. Shi Shang squinted his eyes. The person was wrapped tightly. He couldn't see anything special. "Let him hang there. We'll talk when we get there." They couldn't go out now. They could only wait until they got there. Shi Feng knew this would be the result, so he agreed without any surprise. Yes. The speed of the spaceship increased. After countless warps, the people on the Limitless were extremely curious about the humanoid streamer outside. After such a long time, although he looked dead, his body was still intact after so many transitions. This was enough to apply for a universe record. Shi Sheng didn't comment. If he was from the Red Moon Galaxy, it wouldn't be strange. Red Moon Galaxy. It was a shamelessly strong galaxy. After 3 months, the Limitless entered the Red Moon Galaxy. The Red Moon Galaxy was in the shape of a crescent moon. Because of its scarlet color, it was named the Red Moon Galaxy. As soon as they entered the Red Moon Galaxy, the Limitless was surrounded by a few royal spaceships. There was no star net, so the other party used a relatively ancient sound wave to communicate. Master, they want us to lay down our weapons and surrender. Otherwise, they'll destroy us. Shen Xing translated the contents to Shi Sheng. Disarm and surrender? Shi Sheng repeated with a smile that wasn't a smile. That sounds familiar. Master, should we attack directly? Shen Xing was eager to try. Shi Sheng glared at Shen Hang. We are civilized people. How can you be so rude? Shen Xing. Master, do you even believe what you're saying? Shi Feng. Wouldn't they be human if they became civilized? Usually, when the family head said such words, the other party would definitely be in trouble. The other party sent another message, and Shen Xing immediately translated it. Master, they said that they will give us 10 seconds. If we don't surrender, they will attack us immediately. 10 seconds. From the time Shen Xing received the message to the time he translated it, 5 seconds had already passed. Now that he was talking to Shi Sheng, 5 seconds had already passed. The other party didn't want them to surrender at all. They were just giving them a reason. See, I gave you a chance, but you didn't want it. Such a high-sounding and domineering method was the Red Moon Galaxy. Shi Sheng snorted. Charge. Yes. The limitless speed could only be described with one word. Ghostly. The people on the other side didn't even see how the limitless moved. In the blink of an eye, the limitless was already in front of them. The pitch-black spaceship crashed into them at a strange speed, as if it didn't care whether the spaceship would be damaged or not. They panicked and hurriedly controlled the spaceship to avoid it, but it was too late. The limitless was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating waves. The royal spaceships were disrupted, and the 2 spaceships that came into contact with the limitless directly crashed. The culprit, however, went straight into the Red Moon Galaxy. Under the cover of the galaxy, the pitch-black outer shell disappeared in the blink of an eye. Hurry and inform the Admiral, someone broke in, requesting to intercept. The commander roared with a pale face. That spaceship just now was too strange. Tell the Admiral to stop that spaceship. The commander had a feeling that if they couldn't stop it, then the defense that the Red Moon Galaxy had built up with great difficulty would collapse. Yes. Entering the Red Moon Galaxy meant entering someone else's territory, and Shi Sheng didn't hide his tracks. The royal family quickly discovered them and sent people to intercept them, but none of them succeeded. Instead, they were played around by the limitless, and even lost a lot of spaceships and fighters. Under the pursuit of the royal family, the limitless approached the Red Moon Galaxy's capital star. Only then did the other side change from meeting on the battlefield to trying to negotiate. Master, the other side claims to be Admiral Carol Baines, requesting to negotiate with you. Shen Xing translated the message and immediately said, Master, I think they're trying to play some tricks, let's ignore them. Master, Admiral Carol is not to be trifled with. Shi Feng reminded. There were 2 famous people in the Red Moon Galaxy, and one of them was this Admiral Carol. Even the royal family was somewhat afraid of him, but Carol was very loyal to the royal family. Otherwise, everyone would think that he was trying to rebel. Shi Sheng's eyes darkened. Show the limitless symbol. Shen Xing didn't understand, but he obediently followed Shi Sheng's orders and showed the symbol at the front of the limitless. This symbol could be hidden, and when it was hidden, the entire limitless would be pitch black, and nothing could be seen. When it was opened, the lifelike flower would emit a silver light, and it would be very eye-catching in the universe. Carroll was a very young admiral, with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a high-nose bridge. He was a typical Westerner, with a tall and sturdy figure, but he didn't lose his handsome looks. He looked young, but in fact, he was old enough to be a father to many people. Carroll had a bad temper, and when the limitless didn't respond for a long time, he was already on the verge of exploding. This spaceship had barged in here, and he still hadn't destroyed it, which made him feel sullen. Now that he wanted to negotiate, the other side actually ignored him. At this moment, someone suddenly pointed at the screen in front of them. "Admiral, look." The front of the originally pitch-black spaceship lit up, and the silver pattern spread out, shining brightly, making people unable to take their eyes off it. Carroll's pupils dilated, and his facial muscles twitched. He might have been hallucinating because of this spaceship. How could he see the Sher family symbol at this time, in this place? It's fake. It must be fake. He didn't believe it. Chapter 1893. Although Carroll denied it in his heart, there was no way he could deny it when the symbol on the other side of the spaceship lit up. "General!" His subordinate called out cautiously. The general had been staring at them for almost 5 minutes. Something must be wrong. "General? General!" Carlo turned around abruptly. He seemed to have been holding his breath for a long time. "What's wrong?" His subordinate. "We should be the ones asking you what's wrong." Carlo coughed calmly to cover up his loss of composure. "You guys go out first." Huh? Why did he want them to go out now? What if the other spaceship was messing around? "This is an order." Faced with his subordinate's questioning gazes, Carlo roared angrily, "Get out now." His subordinates were baffled. "General, even if you're angry, you can't vent your anger on us." Soon, only Carlo was left. He could no longer maintain his composure and punched the metal table in front of him. "Sher Shang. This bastard still dares to come." The Sher family symbol was also different. It was used to distinguish one's identity. Ordinary members of the Sher family used a white flower with a faint red core in the middle. The head of the Sher family used silver while the core was the most dazzling red. He would not mistake this symbol. Carlo forced himself to calm down and sent a message to the Limitless. Sher Shang received Carlo's message very quickly. "Head of the Sher family, you don't visit without a reason. Looking at the current situation, I wonder why you're here. Don't tell me you're just here to take a look." The first part of this sentence sounded polite and respectful, but when coupled with the last sentence, it was unreasonably sarcastic. Master, do you know him?" Shunxing tilted his head. How come he didn't know that his master knew this person? Shi Fong glanced at Sher Shang thoughtfully. Back then, there was a rumor that Sher Shang had destroyed a super mecha in the Red Crescent Galaxy. It was probably related to this person in front of him. As the most popular person in Sher Shang, there were some things that he needed to know from rumors. What could he do? He was also in despair. His family head wanted to go against the alliance without a word, and he didn't even bring them along. Sher Shang ignored their gazes and replied himself, "I'm just here to take a look." Carroll was probably hopping mad and didn't reply until a while later. The Red Crescent Galaxy is a small place and cannot afford to be visited by Family Head Sher. Family Head Sher, please return. In other words, the Red Crescent Galaxy did not welcome him, so he could scram back to where he came from. The scenery in a small place is better. Now that the war is chaotic, this place is more suitable for a holiday. Carlo was so angry that his veins were bulging. "Who's talking about the scenery with you?" "Vacation." "Vacation my ass. As far as I know, the blue planet is not affected at all. It's better for the Sher family head to take a vacation on the blue planet." At this point, Carlo gritted his teeth. This woman really had everything. Now, she had come to the Red Moon star system to show off. How shameless. That's right, At this moment, Carol already felt that Sher Shang was here to show off the blue planet. When you're tired of looking at the scenery of one place, it's inevitable that you want to look at other places. Shi Feng and Xinxing were speechless at the same time. Why were these two talking like spies? Was Admiral Carol really not a spy planted in the red lunar system by the master of the family? Carol was the first to give in. What is family head Shir's motive? Just say it. If he continued to talk to her like this, he would go crazy. Why didn't you say this earlier? What a waste of my words. Carol. Or was it my fault? Family head Shir, please speak. If Carol was in front of Shi Shang, he would definitely say this sentence with gritted teeth. I just want to go in. Shi Shang was very sincere. What is it about the red lunar system that attracts you? I'll get someone to destroy it immediately. The scenery. Carol was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He finally got to the main topic, but she went back to it with a single sentence. Shi Shang guessed that Carol was about to explode and became serious. I want to enter the red lunar system to find someone. On the other side, Carol's hand was already on the button to activate the weapon. When he suddenly saw this sentence, his hand stopped in midair and he asked in confusion, who is the person that the Shi family head is looking for personally? She couldn't be looking for His Majesty, then kill His Majesty and unify the red lunar system, right? Don't ask him why he had such a scary thought. It was because she had shamelessly said those words a long time ago. This has nothing to do with the red lunar system. Since it has nothing to do with the red lunar system, why should I let you in? Don't you want your silver fox back? The conversation ended there. About an hour later, Carol drove his mech and approached the Limitless. Family head, should we let him in? Shi Feng was a little worried. If he dares to come, why shouldn't I let him in? I wasn't afraid. Carol landed on the Limitless. Shi Feng went to pick him up personally and brought him to the guest cabin. Carol sized up the spaceship discreetly. The interior design of the spaceship was relatively simple, but every part of it seemed to have been specially treated to blend in with the surrounding buildings. There was a layer of black carpet on the floor, which was very comfortable to step on. In the guest cabin, a young girl sat on the main seat with her legs crossed. Her left hand was supporting her chin, and her right hand was on her knee. Her fingertips were tapping on her knee. Her face was still as beautiful as it was back then, a beauty capable of causing the downfall of nations. It was such an unforgettable face, but when people talked about her, the first thing that came to mind wasn't her beauty. Family head Shi, long time no see. Carol gritted his teeth. It was this femme fatale who stole his silver fox and made him a laughingstock in the red lunar system for many years. General Bain, please take a seat. Shi Shang greeted Carol with a smile. Carol didn't stand on ceremony. He sat opposite of Shi Shang and placed his hands on the table. Family head Shi, my name is Carol Bain. It's basic etiquette to call someone by their name. As the head of the Shi family, don't you know this? Shi Shang raised his eyebrows slightly. General Bain. Carol's mouth twitched. Call me Carol. Shi Shang smiled and didn't say anything. Carol's chest rose and fell quickly. He held his breath and asked, where's Silver Fox? Silver Fox. This was his super mech. Ever since he lost Silver Fox, his life hadn't been easy. If it wasn't for the connections and strength he had accumulated in the past, he probably wouldn't be a general anymore. And all of this was because of this woman. General Bain, why are you looking at me like that? I wasn't the one who stole Silver Fox. You lost. Also, you were very generous when you threw Silver Fox into space. If I didn't help you get it back, you wouldn't even be able to see its bones now. You should be thanking me now. Carlo's expression immediately turned ugly. He opened his mouth, but couldn't find the words to refute. He was so angry when he threw Silver Fox into space. If he couldn't have it, no one else could either. Who knew that this lunatic would take Silver Fox away? Chapter 1894. What do you want? Carlo clenched his fists. I can return Silver Fox to you, but you have to let me go to the Red Crescent Galaxy. Shang paused and smiled sinisterly. I'm giving you face. You know that you can't stop me if I want to go to the Red Crescent Galaxy. Carlo didn't want to admit what Shang said, but it was the truth. You still know how to give face? Was the universe about to be destroyed? Wasn't she someone who wouldn't give face to anyone no matter where she went? You lost to me, so there's no harm in giving face. Being poked in the sore spot again, Carlo wished he could strangle Shang to death. Carlo took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger. He squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Purpose. Looking for someone. Didn't I say that General Bane is old now and his eyes and ears are not as sharp? This. Carlo stood up and slammed the table. His eyes were burning with anger. This despicable woman was scolding him in a roundabout way. Shang raised his eyebrows and waited for Carlo to continue. Carlo controlled himself miraculously. Master Shur, do you believe what you said? Looking for someone? She must have another purpose. He didn't believe that she was just looking for someone. I do. Shang nodded seriously. I'm here to look for someone. Why don't you believe me? Carlo was speechless. Don't think that he'll believe you just because you're so confident. He didn't believe you. But Silver Fox's allure was greater. Carlo struggled and gritted his teeth. Let me take a look at Silver Fox. He wanted to make sure that Silver Fox was intact. Shang gestured to Xinqing with his chin. Xinqing waved his hand and a holographic image appeared in the air. Silver Fox's appearance was similar to that of a fox. It was silver in color, so it was named Silver Fox. At this time, Silver Fox was kept in a dark place. The light shone on Silver Fox like a star surrounded by stars. It was dazzling. Carlo took 2 steps forward excitedly and stared at Silver Fox intently. His heart raced. He felt like a rash young man who had just met his beloved girl. Carlo was a general who had experienced life and death. He calmed down quickly. How can I be sure that Silver Fox is intact in this image? This was just an image that could be recorded in advance. Shang shrugged. Fang, get the Zhanlong guards to send me a real-time image. Yes. Carlo sneered. Family head, now that the star web has collapsed, how are you going to teleport? Do I have to wait here for a few months? Who knew if the images sent back a few months ago had been tampered with? Yes. Shang nodded. His face was full of smiles, but the smile did not reach his eyes. For the sake of General Bane's Silver Fox, the general will definitely be willing to wait, right? Carlo. Silver Fox. Carlo was in a dilemma. He really wanted to get his Silver Fox back, but Shang's actions were very strange. Why did she return Silver Fox to him? Just as she said, if she wanted to enter the Red Moon Galaxy, it would be very easy. They couldn't stop her. What did she say about giving in just because he was her subordinate? That was all nonsense. She definitely had a scheme. Just as Carol was feeling conflicted, the image was sent back. General Bane, take a look. Shang reminded Carlo. Carlo looked up. It seemed to be the same place, but now there were some Zhanlong guards standing there. One of them was writing the time. There was a time difference between planets, not to mention between galaxies. The time he was writing was the blue planet's time. Carlo quickly exchanged the time difference and confirmed that the time written was the blue planet's time. Other than the seconds, it was exactly the same. If it wasn't for her ability to predict things and calculate the time to talk to him, then there was only one possibility. That was a real-time image. You. Carlo looked at Shang in shock. The star web of the entire galaxy could not be used. Sending messages required an ancient method, and it might not even be possible. Now, the safest way to send messages had been restored to the time before the star web was built, manually. But it took too long. Sometimes, by the time a message was sent back, the matter had already passed. How could she send a message in such a short time? The star web is in a state of collapse. Can you explain how you could contact the blue planet so quickly? It's the star web that's collapsing, not the blue planet. Shi Shang shrugged innocently. Is it strange that I can contact the blue planet? Carlo had heard rumors before. The blue planet seemed to use an independent network. But that wasn't right. Now that the outside network had collapsed, the blue planet's independent network was only limited to the blue planet. Outside, they still had to rely on the star web. Shi Shang had Shunxing. The star web had only collapsed and no one was allowed to log in. It wasn't completely destroyed. It wouldn't be difficult for Shunxing to send a message. Of course, Carlo didn't know this. He just felt that it was very strange. General Bain, do you believe me now? Carlo frowned. His gaze lingered on Shi Shang for a long time. If I promise you, will you return Silver Fox to me? Of course. I'm a trustworthy person in the galaxy. There weren't many people who were as trustworthy as him. Carlo had no words to refute. Shi Shang's bad reputation spread far and wide, but at the same time, he was also known to be trustworthy. As long as he promised something, he would keep it. Of course, the prerequisite was that the other party had to keep it too. Carlo continued to struggle, but in the end, he lost to Silver Fox's temptation. The Red Crescent Galaxy is now in a state of emergency. No foreign aircraft is allowed to enter. Those who enter without permission will be destroyed. I'm not the only one guarding the defense line here. I can bring you in, but this spaceship, you can't drive it in. You don't have to worry about the spaceship. You just have to let it in, Shi Shang said arrogantly. Carlo was confused. After a while, he snorted. If you want to drive it in, you can't let anyone notice. I'll arrange an abandoned port for you. You can park the spaceship there. With her abilities, she should be able to make a spaceship invisible without anyone noticing. Thank you. When can I get Silver Fox? Shi Shang smiled faintly. General Bain, do you think Silver Fox's value is that low? What do you want? Carlo couldn't hold back his anger anymore. His gaze was as if he wanted to peel off Shi Shang's skin. Of course, a fair trade. Equal value in exchange for equal value. Shi Shang smiled. Shi Shang, don't go too far. General Bain can leave now. We'll pretend that we never had this conversation. Shi Shang put on a "it's up to you. I won't force you" attitude. Carlo. Someone come. He wanted to blast this despicable woman away. He was so angry. Chapter 1895. Muk City. This was a dilapidated city. Many years ago, it was still very prosperous. It was one of the most prosperous cities in the Red Moon Galaxy. However, because of a riot, Muk City was bombed by the royal family. After that, it was no longer prosperous. Only dilapidated and dirty remained. The royal family tried to rebuild Muk City. This was the capital of the Red Moon Galaxy. With such an abandoned city, it seriously affected the image of the Red Moon Galaxy. However, every proposal was met with protests from the residents of Muk City. Due to some other reasons, the proposal was eventually abandoned. Muk City had survived to this day in its old and dilapidated state. It had become a unique scenery on the capital star and attracted many people to visit it. Carlo found a port for Shi Shang. It was Muk City. The people in Muk City were very poor. The port had long been abandoned and no one cared about it. The Limitless landed at the empty port. There was a sense of desolation here. The ground had long been cracked because no one walked on it. Weeds covered the cracks, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws to show their sovereignty. Shi Feng brought the Zhanlong guards down to check. After confirming that it was safe, he came up to let Shi Shang down. It was winter in Muk City. Although it wasn't snowing, it was still very cold. The wind that blew seemed to have knives, cutting their skin and causing them to feel pain. Feng Ci was tightly wrapped by Shi Shang. Only his face could be seen. The young man was like a doll placed in a display window. From head to toe, he was exquisite. Standing at the deserted port, it was as if he had entered the wrong set. Shi Shang was much more casual. He was still wearing the long dress from the cabin with a cloak. He held the cloak with one hand and held Feng Xi's hand with the other. "I can only send you here." Carlo came down from a spaceship behind and ran over in the cold wind. "I will keep an eye out for the person you mentioned. However, the galactic network can't be used now. The chances of finding him are very low." "Okay." Shi Shang replied faintly. Carlo hesitated. "I hope you will keep your promise." "Don't worry. Whether or not I find him, I will return Silver Fox to you when I leave." Carlo snorted. "I hope so. If it wasn't for Silver Fox, he wouldn't have to be so humble." Carol left angrily. Shi Shang looked at the almost abandoned city in the distance, and an obscure look flashed across his eyes. "Patriarch, what should we do now?" Shi Shang looked away and said calmly, "Find a place to rest." "Patriarch, what should we do about that person?" Everyone was stunned. Then, they remembered that there was a person hanging behind their spaceship. They had almost forgotten about it. "Go and see if it's dead. If it's dead, throw it away." Shi Feng brought 2 people to check on the human-shaped streamer. The result was shocking. It was not dead. That person was still alive. How tenacious must a person's vitality be to be able to survive without eating or drinking for so long? Superman. Shi Shang decided to have a look at this magical species. She was put down by Shi Feng and placed on the uneven ground. He was wearing strange clothes that hugged her body tightly. His face was the same, only revealing a pair of eyes and mouth. It was like a person who had been put into a body bag. A group of people surrounded a corpse and looked at each other. "Let's see if we can get her out." Shi Shang broke the silence. This person must have relied on this strange thing to live for so long. There were many unknown things in the galaxy, so there was no need to be surprised when strange things happened. Maybe a miracle would happen next to you in the next second. The Zhanlong guards retreated a little, leaving 2 people to get the person out of the body bag. However, after a long time, they still could not get the person out. The body bag was soft when it met something soft and hard when it met something hard. It was so magical. Patriarch. Shi Feng looked at Shi Shang. What should they do? Shi Shang was curious about the thing on his body. "Take it with you first. Throw it away if she doesn't wake up tomorrow." "Yes." Shi Feng asked people to carry the corpse. Shi Shang turned around and put the Limitless into the dimension. Some of the Zhanlong guards were surprised, but some were calm. Shi Feng and Xinxing were not surprised. There were many abandoned houses in Muk City. Shi Feng found a safer place and decorated it as a temporary residence. "Xiao Shang, I'm a little hungry." Feng Ci held Shi Shang's hand and blinked at him. "Eat something to fill your stomach first." Shi Shang handed him a bag of snacks. Feng Ci ate the snacks obediently and gave 1 or 2 to Shi Shang from time to time. Shi Shang used Xinxing to check something. Feng Ci handed the snacks over. Shi Shang opened his mouth to take a bite, but he didn't bite. Feng Ci handed the snacks over again, but Shi Shang still didn't bite. After a few tries, Shi Shang finally looked up. "Aren't you childish?" Shi Shang snatched the snacks from his hand and threw them into his mouth. Feng Ci froze and didn't say anything. He took the snacks and sat on the other side, eating them thoughtfully. The books were all lies. Xiao Sheng didn't fall for it at all. Shi Shang checked and found that Feng Ci had been sitting there alone for a long time. His face was a little pale. She quickly put away Xinxing and pulled Feng Ci in. "Is your brain not working well again? Why are you sitting there? Are you cold? Let me see your hand." Feng Ci stretched out his hand, and Shi Shang grabbed it. It was warm and not cold. Maybe it was just his face that was a little pale. Shi Shang pressed his lips against his, using his own temperature to warm his cold lips. Feng Ci's eyes seemed to be shining. He hugged Shi Shang's waist and pulled him into his arms, deepening the kiss. Feng Xi's face was red again. There was no coldness anymore, and he was even emitting heat. Only then did Shi Shang let go of him. Feng Xi opened his red lips and breathed. He glanced at the person beside him and asked carefully, "Xiao Shang, have my kissing skills improved?" "Have they?" Shi Shang said seriously. "Try again. Let me see." Feng Xi leaned over again. A few minutes later, Shi Shang shook his head calmly. "No." He still looked like a dog. Feng Xi frowned. "No. Practice hard." Shi Shang patted Feng Xi's shoulder earnestly. "It'll get better." "Oh." Feng Xi saw that Shi Shang was ignoring him, so he left the room. The Zhanlong guards were cooking outside, and the aroma was very strong. "Young master, dinner will be ready soon." The Zhanlong guards thought that Feng Xi was here to urge them to cook. Feng Xi didn't say a word. The Zhanlong guards were used to him being like this. Other than the family head, he would reply. No matter what others said, he was usually like this. The only time he was different was when the family head was involved. The Zhanlong guards didn't dare to delay and quickly served the food. "Young master, shall I bring it in for you and the family head?" Feng Xi stretched out his hand from under his cloak. Chapter 1896. One of the Zhanlong guards passed it over. Feng Xi carried the things inside and the Zhanlong guards relaxed slightly. That was scary. Master really wants to spoil young Master Feng Xi to the heavens. What's wrong with that? Master can spoil him whenever he wants. That's young Master Feng Xi's fortune. I heard that you were recruited because of your good cooking? Someone pushed the Zhanlong guard who was serving the rice. The Zhanlong guard turned around. "Ah. Oh yes. He used to be from another team and didn't have the right to join the 10th team. However, he had received orders from the captain to report to the 10th team. He thought that someone had finally discovered his talent. Who knew that he was just a chef? Sai, your cooking is really good. It's so much better than the compressed food and nutrient solution we eat." One of the Zhanlong guards exclaimed. "In the past, we could only eat nutrient solution when we followed Master. Sometimes, when the nutrient solution ran out, Master would make us eat grass. We're not sheep, why would we eat grass? Those days were really hopeless. This time we can still eat. It's so lucky." The Zhanlong guards praised the chef. The chef scratched his head, embarrassed. "As long as you guys like it." "We can't like it. Young Master Feng Xi has to like it." "Yeah, young Master Feng Xi is really picky. He doesn't like anything I like. However, it's still better than nutrient solution." "That's enough. When Master hears your discussion, he'll punish you guys to go out and get some fresh air." The others immediately shut up and snatched the rest of the food. Luckily, these people still had some conscience and left a bowl for the chef. This was going to be their special meal in the future. Of course, they couldn't offend him. The chef sat down to eat. He glanced at the corpse beside him. He didn't pay much attention to it at first but quickly shifted his gaze back. "Did he move just now?" The chef pointed at the corpse and asked. The others stopped talking and looked at the corpse at the same time. The corpse laid there quietly without any movement. After waiting for a while, there was still no movement. The Zhanlong guards went forward to check. "He didn't wake up. Did you see wrongly?" The chef wasn't sure if he saw wrongly. However, the corpse really didn't wake up. He scratched his head embarrassedly. "Maybe I saw wrongly. Let's eat." "Why isn't the executive officer back yet?" "We don't have many people in Muk City. It might not be easy to find them. They should be back in a while." "The executive officer is so powerful. He will be fine. This is delicious." The chef looked at the group of Zhanlong guards and then looked at the motionless corpses. In the end, he silently ate his rice. The night was desolate, and the cold wind blew through the buildings outside, making strange noises. Feng Xiai hugged Shi Shang and stared at the night sky outside the window. His fingers hooked around Shi Shang's fingers and he rubbed them gently. Woo! The strange sound became louder and louder, as if it was right next to his ear. Crack! Feng Xiai raised his hand, but his other hand was suddenly grabbed. He lowered his eyes and met Shi Shang's clear eyes. She raised a finger to her lips, indicating for him not to make a sound. He looked out of the window and put his hand back. Shi Shang sat up, jumped off the bed, and walked to the window. The glass was covered with dust, and the scenery outside was hazy. Shi Shang stood quietly by the window for a moment, listening to the strange sounds coming from the wind outside. Someone's here. A Zhonglong guard outside suddenly shouted. The iron sword suddenly appeared and shattered the glass. Shi Shang stepped on the windowsill and jumped down. Feng Xiai sat in his original position and did not move. Just as Shi Shang jumped down, a person jumped in from the window and approached Feng Xiai. His speed was extremely fast, and he left behind afterimages in the air. Just as he was about to reach Feng Xiai waved his hand and the person was thrown to the wall by a strange force. His organs seemed to have been shattered, and his blood rushed to his head. Before he could struggle, the scene in front of him suddenly dimmed. Shi Shang squatted on the windowsill and watched as the person turned into a pile of sand. A gust of wind blew and he disappeared. Feng Xiai looked at Shi Shang. His eyes were pitch black, and there was almost no light. His entire body was shrouded in a thick fog. Just looking at him was enough to make one's heart palpitate. He pursed his lips and lowered his head. The aura around him suddenly disappeared, and he returned to normal. Master, are you okay? The Zhonglong guard's anxious voice sounded from outside. Shi Shang jumped down from the windowsill. I'm fine. We caught one alive. I'll be out in a while. The Zhonglong guard outside fell silent. Shi Shang jumped down from the windowsill and approached Feng Xiai. Feng Xiai reached out and grabbed Shi Shang's clothes. His fingernails were white and his fingernails were white. He explained anxiously. He rushed over first. That's why I attacked. Xiao Shang did not like him like that. I know. It's okay. Shi Shang patted his head. I didn't protect you well. I've dirted your hands. Although he would have been fine even if he hadn't attacked. Xiao Shang, you're not angry? Why should I be? Shi Shang lifted his chin and kissed his pale lips. I'd rather someone else die than see you get scared. Feng Xi's unsettled heart slowly calmed down. Shi Shang kissed him lightly and coaxed him softly. Be good. Sleep for a while. I'll go out and take a look. Feng Xiai grabbed onto her and did not let go. He frowned slightly. Shi Shang tilted his head and said helplessly, Then get up. Feng Xiai immediately put on his clothes and got up. Shi Shang wrapped a cloak around him. She opened her mouth but did not say anything in the end. She held his hand and walked out. The Zhonglong guards were all outside. A few of them stood at the door and threw an unconscious man on the ground. Wake him up. The Zhonglong guards immediately tied the man to a pillar at the side and roughly woke him up. The man was still a little dizzy. He turned his head and looked around. After a while, he came back to his senses and realized that he had been caught. The Zhonglong guards looked at Shi Shang. Shi Shang nodded slightly. Immediately, someone stood out and asked fiercely, Who are you? What do you want? The man trembled and his face turned pale. He stuttered, I'm a resident of Myuk City. A resident? What are you doing here in the middle of the night? The man was very timid. The Zhonglong guard's fierce look scared him out of his wits. He blurted out everything that had happened. Someone had seen them in the afternoon. Because they felt that they were not ordinary people, they had planned to steal something to eat at night. There were many such gangs in Myuk City. Before Ling caused trouble, there were many rich people who came to Myuk City. They would choose those rich people to rob and get a lot of money, enough for them to survive. They would choose the timid rich people as their targets. That way, even if they robbed those people, they would be safer. However, after Ling caused trouble, there were not many people who came to Muk City. They did not want money. They just wanted to fill their stomachs. #hashtag today's Baiji flavored ticket number 2017. 0803 Flip, Huang Mi, Drunken Dream. Notice. The main article is about to end. The ending activities are starting one after another. Now, the cuties in the top 100 of the QQ reading fan list can join the group 553413796 to participate in the lucky draw activities. The prizes are physical objects and book coins. Only the cuties in the top 100 of the QQ reading fan list can join. Please wait patiently for the rest of the activities. P.S. Chijian fans and above can also join the group. Chapter 1897. At first glance, there seemed to be nothing wrong with this person's explanation. It seemed logical and logical. Shi Shang stepped forward and looked at the man calmly. Since you only wanted to eat, why did you kill us? Why would you kill them if you only wanted to steal food? The people who attacked her before didn't seem like normal people either. Kill you? No, we didn't want to kill you. The man immediately shook his head and explained emotionally, we really only wanted to steal some food. We didn't mean to kill anyone. Shi Shang frowned. She asked someone to retrieve the body and throw it in front of the man. This person wasn't with you? The man looked at the corpse and his face turned pale. No, I don't know him. It was a compulsory course for the Zhanlong guards to tell if a person was lying or not. They all knew that this man wasn't lying. He really didn't know this person. Master, there was another group of people. The Zhanlong guard said. We just got here. Why would someone attack us? Shi Shang stared at the corpse on the ground and said calmly, 0. The Zhanlong guard was surprised. Didn't you say that the Red Crescent Galaxy was relatively safe? How did 0 know that they were here so quickly and sent people to kill the master? Relatively safe is a strange word. Shi Shang turned around. Get rid of this person. When Shi Feng comes back, tell him to come see me. This relatively safe place might be true. To the people of the Red Crescent Galaxy, it might be 0. Yes. You. What do you want to do to me? I really only came to steal food. I didn't do anything else. I have parents and children to take care of. Please let me go. I beg you. You. What do you want to do? Where are you taking me? Please let me go. The man's voice became weaker and weaker until it disappeared. Shi Shang coaxed Feng Ci to sleep and stood by the window alone. She looked at the buildings in the night. They were like monsters in the night, waiting for their prey to take the bait. Occasionally, a light flashed past Shi Shang's eyes, making her face look even more evil. Even if Feng Ci was awake, he probably wouldn't know what she was thinking. Shi Shang looked down and flicked her wrist. The Rubik's Cube appeared in her hand. She twisted it gently and a soft sound rang out in the night. Her movements were extremely slow. Occasionally, she would stop and then continue twisting. She just casually spun the Rubik's Cube and didn't put it together. So even after she spun it for a while, the Rubik's Cube was still in a mess. D. A soft sound could be heard in the room. Shi Shang kept the Rubik's Cube and turned to leave the room. Shi Feng was waiting outside. Patriarch. How is it? Shi Feng shook his head. This is undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. The Red Moon Galaxy is too big. Miss Xia Chu is alone. It won't be easy for us to find her. Shi Feng paused and looked at Shi Shang. Besides, Patriarch, don't you think all of this is too much of a coincidence? His Excellency Caesar told you that Miss Xia Chu is in the Red Moon Galaxy. We met 0 the moment we arrived. He had already heard about what had happened just now from others. It was too much of a coincidence. Shi Shang leaned against the wall and squinted at Shi Feng. You mean Caesar and Zero are in cahoots? Shi Feng didn't answer. He said, His Excellency Caesar only told you that Miss Xia Chu is in the Red Moon Galaxy. He didn't ask you to confirm whether Miss Xia Chu is alive or dead. Patriarch, please reconsider. His responsibility was to remind Shi Shang, not to influence Shi Shang's decision. So he could only voice his doubts and not question Shi Shang's actions. Shi Shang and Shi Feng's conversation ended there. Shi Feng didn't know what Shi Shang was thinking. He could only try his best to arrange the Zhanlong guards so that no accidents would happen. The next day, Shi Shang was leaving Muk City for Zite City on the Imperial Capital Star. Zite City was the capital of the Red Moon Galaxy's Imperial Capital Star. It was the center of power. Before leaving, the chef remembered the corpse that everyone had forgotten. He pointed at the corpse and asked Shi Shang, Patriarch, what should we do with this? Shi Shang looked at the corpse and frowned. Leave it here. The chef looked at the corpse and silently lit a candle for him. It was his bad luck to meet the Patriarch. Check the surroundings again. Shi Feng exhorted loudly. Everyone once again carefully checked their own belongings, as well as whether they had left anything behind. The chef felt that the corpse was strange. After he finished checking his belongings, he saw that the others were still checking. He squatted in front of the corpse to observe. Just as the chef stared at the corpse's face that was wrapped tightly, the corpse's eyes that were exposed to the air suddenly opened. The ferocious look in his eyes shocked the chef so much that he immediately stood up and retreated to a safe distance. At the same time, he shouted, Master, he's awake. Everyone heard him and gathered around. The corpse on the ground also stared at them cautiously. He crawled up from the ground stiffly. His voice was so hoarse that it sounded like someone was strangling him. Who are you people? Who are you? The Zhanlong guards asked. The corpse stood up completely. His legs seemed to be a little inconvenient and his body was slanted. He quickly looked around and moved back a few steps. He leaned against the wall to support himself. She looked around at the Zhanlong guards. This outfit. Just as the corpse was guessing, the Zhanlong guards suddenly split into two rows. Shi Shang walked in from behind the Zhanlong guards. The corpse's pupils shrank. Shi Shang, why are you here? Shi Shang raised his eyebrows. You know me. There were many people in the 6 major galaxies who knew her, but she didn't remember them. After all, the big shots didn't need to remember unimportant people. The corpse leaned against the wall and panted. He reached out and pressed behind his ear. The thing wrapped around him immediately disappeared. The man's hair was slightly long and almost covered his eyes. However, his face was very handsome. However, his face was pale and he looked rather pathetic. It's you. Shi Shang clicked his tongue. I was wondering why I felt that something was wrong. Why did you choose to wander the galaxy instead of being a prince? Or, have your identity been exposed? At the end of his sentence, he sounded like he was gloating. Can you not be so sarcastic? The person who was gloating was speechless. He leaned against the wall and sat down. The burden on his body was too great. Standing up was already his limit. I don't always speak like this. If you don't like it, you can choose not to listen. Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. My identity hasn't been exposed. The man retorted angrily. However, his face quickly darkened. However, it's more serious than your identity being exposed. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Shi Shang. There are familiar faces everywhere in the galaxy. What should I do? Little fairy, you're being lenient. You're suffering from retribution. Shi Shang, drawing sword, what did you say? Little fairy, looking at the sky innocently, I praised your charisma. Countless people fell for you. Feng Ci, wife, she said you're being lenient. Little fairy, angry, shouldn't you be jealous now? Feng Ci, proud, I don't believe you. Little fairy. You're all bullying me. I need votes. Chapter 1898. Let's go. Sher Shang didn't want to listen to the man in front of him talk about love and hatred. He ordered the Zhonlong guards to leave. The man was speechless. This woman was still so annoying. However, the man stood up from the ground and limped behind them. Sher Shang, Zite City has been locked down. It won't be easy for you to get in. He had been awake for a while, but because he wasn't sure who they were, he didn't dare to move. Sher Shang raised his hand and waved the thing in his hand. The man's expression changed. He quickly chased after Sher Shang and stopped him. He then realized that there was a young man standing beside Sher Shang. The young man was wrapped up tightly, only revealing his cute face. He was looking at him with his head tilted. He just looked at him quietly, but he felt a sharp gaze on his back. Sher Shang pinched the young man. The young man lowered his eyes and smiled at Sher Shang obediently. At that moment, it was like a flower blooming in spring. His whole body was glowing, making people unable to look away. In just a few seconds, he looked like a different person. The man took a step back. Where did this young man come from? Forget it. Anyway, she was surrounded by strange people. The man took a deep breath. You've seen Admiral Carlo? Sher Shang had just waved Carlo's pass. So what? Sher Shang pulled Feng Ci behind him. Feng Ci rested his chin on Sher Shang's shoulder and wrapped his arms around her waist. He looked like a large pet that wanted to be scratched by its owner. The man's mouth twitched. He couldn't bear to look and looked away. This woman actually let someone get so close to her. Was the universe about to be destroyed? The current situation was no different from the universe being destroyed. Where did you see Admiral Carlo? The man continued to ask. Sher Shang pointed to the sky. The man looked up at the sky. He couldn't help but feel disappointed. He thought that Carlo was nearby. He didn't trust anyone now. He only trusted Carlo, but he couldn't contact him at all. He had tried to find him before, but he had been chased down before he could even get close to Carlo. Then, he had met him in the Sher Shang. Sher Shang and the young man walked past him. The man subconsciously reached out his hand. Just as his fingers were about to touch the Sher Shang, he suddenly felt his entire arm go numb. The young man was staring at him coldly, as if he would break his hand if he dared to move an inch closer. The man quickly retracted his hand and rubbed it back and forth a few times before he felt better. He glanced at the youth fearfully and moved to the side. Sher Shang, name your terms. Take me back to West Tay City. He had to go back. I don't bring any trouble. Sher Shang pointed at him from head to toe. But now, you are full of trouble. Not even for the sake of our past relationship. The man did not give up. He did not know who else he could trust and who else could help him. The person in front of him was the best choice. Since when did our friendship come from? Sher Shang found it funny. You think I'll help you again just because I've helped you once? Prince Jonah, I don't owe you anything. Sher Shang hugged Feng Ci as they walked over. The Zhonlong guards walked past Jonah one by one. Most of them didn't even look at him. They weren't interested in him. Only a few of them would look at him. It was a very strange look. There was no sympathy or pity. Look, even the people she had brought out were so cold-blooded. Jonah looked at the group walking away. He gritted his teeth and followed. Jonah's legs were not well, so he was not very fast. However, Sher Shang was taking care of Feng Ci, so he did not move very fast either. After leaving Myuk City, they took a hover car to West Tay City. Jonah did not have a car, so he could only watch the group leave. From Myuk City to West Tay City, Sher Shang was chased down several times. Sometimes it was humans, sometimes it was robots. There were many ways to kill her. As she got closer to West Tay City, the assassins became more and more powerful. In the end, they even used special people from the army. Zero was determined to kill her. However, she still managed to reach West-Tay City. West-Tay City, the most prosperous city in the Red Crescent Galaxy. However, there were soldiers patrolling everywhere outside West-Tay City. Entering and exiting required strict checks. Shi Shang had Carol's pass, but the people doing the checks were a little strange. It took a while for them to pass. After entering the city, the once prosperous West-Tay City was now a little desolate. People came and went in a hurry. All the hover cars were banned. The holographic advertisements on the streets were still running, but no one was watching. Every 3 minutes, there would be soldiers patrolling the streets. Shi Fong arranged a place for them to stay, then called for the spies in West-Tay City to report on the current situation. The one in charge now was the eldest prince. Their king's health was not good, but other than the eldest prince and the group of doctors, no one had seen him. No one knew if he was still alive. The third prince, Jonah, had been accused of treason. He was supposed to be exiled, but it was said that he had run away. There was still no news. As for Zero, there were not many traces. Although the same situation had occurred in other galaxies, it was quickly settled by the royal family. They had even shut down the galactic terminal in the Red Crescent Galaxy. Hence, the Red Crescent Galaxy did not suffer many losses and was relatively safe. Shi Shang scoffed. How could the Red Crescent Galaxy be relatively safe if Zero could send so many people to kill her? That was just a facade Zero had created for these people. Any news about Xia Chu? Shi Shang did not want to listen to such trivial matters and interrupted the person reporting. That person's voice paused and naturally changed the topic. I haven't found anything yet. Shi Shang waved him away. Shi Fong wanted to say something, but Shi Shang waved him away. He could only shut up and leave the room. Seeing that he had left, Feng Ci squatted in front of Shi Shang and reached out to hold her hand. Don't worry, there will be news. Although he did not want any news at all. Don't say things that go against your heart. Shi Shang rolled her eyes. Did she not know him? Feng Ci was not embarrassed at being exposed. He lay on Shi Shang's lap and said in a muffled voice, I just want you to be happy. But I don't want you to be unhappy. Shi Shang ran her fingers through his hair and gently rubbed it. If you're unhappy, tell me. Feng Ci was silent for a while. I know Xia Chu means something to you. I can't stop you. All I can do is accompany you. Xiao Shang, I'm not unhappy. I'm just a little jealous that she was able to meet you so long before me. Shi Shang helped him up and let him sit on her lap. I gave her my most miserable time, and I gave you the person I love the most. You're the only one who can accompany me for the rest of my life. Feng Ci lowered his eyes and pursed his lips. He wrapped his arms around Shi Shang's neck and hugged her tightly. He had to control his desire. Otherwise, he would lose her. He could not lose her. He could not. Shi Shang felt Feng Ci's body trembling. She was stunned for a moment. Her hand brushed his back and gently comforted him. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.